Hello, everybody. Good evening, good day, everyone, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to the Ask Abhijit show. Today, we are going to discuss geopolitics and we're going to take questions from the super chat and the live chat. Before we do that, let's see who all is there on the live chat with us. Who all do we have? Event Countdown, iMatistic, ICMBs, Ayush Singh, Ashtavakra, Mr. Jam, Amit Pandey, Patriotic, Rakshit Mishra, Samana Satish, Saksham Jashrotia, Animesh, Mr. Jam Abhyuday Singh, Hitanshu Mehta from Gujarat. Hello. Mystic SK, Jai Shri Krishna, Hitanshu Mehta, Har Mahadev, Shivasai, Namaskaram. Ultimate Power, Namaste. Anonymous Scientist, Event Countdown, Ugram, iMatistic, Ashtavakra, Bhaskar, Kayatwal, Ashwani. Abhishek Shukla, Komal, Samyak Space, injured soccer player. Well, I hope you get well soon. Netizen, Pratyush, Sujit Shanagonda, Fishbowl, Naman Arora, Feeds Strong Man, Tanmay Deshpande, McLovin Ramram, Manchit Sutaria, Ananta Subramaniam, AD Meat from Gujarat, Saurabh, Animesh. Who else do we have? Ananta Subramaniam once again. Anish Panchal, Ayush Gupta, Saksham, Saurabh, Omkar, Shinde, Saxena, Jai Guman, Vinay Rai, Bhumihar, Anant Subramaniam, Animesh, Pratishtha P, Satellite, Daksh, Ankita, Mango, Anant, Samyak, and everyone else, Priyansh Kumar, Pratishtha TP, Namaste, Jyotsna Tomar, Namaste, Daksha, Ram Ram, Omkar, Boxer, Sasmit, Vinay Rai, Godliness, Manisha, Priyanka Jabalia, Saurabh, Mr. Saxena, Feel Strong Man, and Karan Narawat, Prashant Panwar, Harshvardhan Kaspa, Amisha Mishra, hello. Lokraj, Adi Trivedi, Marcos, Ashwani. Okay, random shots. Pranam, Pranam. Okay, so we're going to take questions from the super chat. Before we do that, I have a recommendation for you all. And yeah, I'm not recommending my books. I'm not doing that right now. I'm recommending something else. Considering what's happening in the world right now, I will highly recommend that you all watch a couple of my old live streams, Ask Abhijit episodes. Which ones? Here. Ask Abhijit 38, Taliban conquers Afghanistan from 2021. And Ask Abhijit 40, Afghanistan situation, once again from 2021. Both these episodes went live in the year 2021 when the Taliban actually conquered Afghanistan. And why am I recommending that you watch these old episodes? Why am I recommending that? It's because they are super relevant. If you want to understand what's happening right now, watch those episodes. You could say I have made some forecasts in those episodes. At that time, when the Taliban took Afghanistan, there was this great atmosphere of gloom and doom in India. India's great geopolitical experts, strategic affairs experts were saying that, oh, Pakistan has won. Pakistan has won, Rawalpindi has won, Afghanistan has gone to Pakistan, we are doomed. That's what everyone was saying. And I was saying, you are all mistaken. Please understand what's really happening. So I will highly recommend that you watch these two episodes. Ask Abhijit 38, Taliban conquers Afghanistan, and Ask Abhijit 40, which is about the Afghanistan situation at the time. Okay, with that said, all right, let's do today's live stream. Let's take the questions. Let's begin. Anonymous scientist says Amir Khan Muttaqi's visit is quite significant. Comments. Well, it is very significant, of course. So he's the Taliban foreign minister, the foreign minister of Afghanistan. And first of all, our government, our Ministry of External Affairs has referred to him multiple times now during this visit as Afghanistan's foreign minister, not the acting foreign minister, not something like that, the actual foreign minister. And our external affairs minister, Dr. Jaishankar, had a proper meeting with him. So it's foreign minister to foreign minister. So we are essentially giving de facto recognition to the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan. Right? And Mr. Amir Khan Muttaqi was treated super well during this visit. He visited his alma mater, which is Deoband. Darul Ulum, that institution, which is the fountain place of the Taliban. That's where the Taliban has emerged from. The Taliban are Deobandis. So he went there. He was given a grand welcome there. Then he comes back to Delhi and participates in various events and does press conferences. Overall, it was an extremely warm welcome given to Mr. Amir Khan Muttaqi, and I don't think he has ever been treated this well anywhere, even in his own country. So, very significant. And why is this? It's because we have common enemy. We have a common enemy, which is Pakistan. And the day Mr. Muttaqi came to India, the Pakistanis launched an airstrike on Kabul. And then last night, the Taliban responded properly by launching attacks on various Pakistani posts along the Durand line, which is the so called border between the two countries, between the artificial temporary nation and Gandhar. And apparently, there have been lots of Pakistani casualties and so on. So the Pakistanis wanted to give this message to the Afghans that India can't help you. So the Taliban is giving the message to Pakistan that we don't need help. We are not doing this for India's help. We can deal with you ourselves. So so essentially the Taliban is pivoting towards India. Afghanistan is pivoting towards India and essentially towards Russia and China also. That's what's happening. And Pakistan, as we know, has become a US vassal. So we are seeing this reconfiguration of the world order. And this all comes in the background of Bagram. The Americans want Bagram. Trump says, I want Bagram. Who the hell are you to say that you want Bagram? It's not, it's Afghan property, isn't it? You can't just go and grab air bases and military bases wherever you want. So the Taliban says, no, we will not give you Bagram. And that's the context in which all of this is happening. So we are seeing a reconfiguration of the world order. We are seeing Afghanistan pivot towards India. And overall, it's good that this is happening. So pretty significant. Teen Talks Dharma says, what are your thoughts on the PC prize? What is a PC prize? Peace Prize, Nobel Peace Prize. Is that what you're talking about? Also, does this decision mean that the committee is not controlled by the state? Trump ke liye dukh hua. Okay. In case you're referring to the Nobel Peace Prize, what are my thoughts? It's a joke. The Nobel Peace Prize is pure politics now. Pure politics. Like they once gave the Nobel Peace Prize to Mohammed Yunus, right? The Bangladeshi individual puppet leader or whatever the hell he is right now, advisor. So they gave that Nobel Prize to the guy many years before he was put in that position. So it was all pre-planned, right? So similarly, this lady, I don't know who she is, what she's achieved in her life, what she's done, what she represents. She seems to be very strongly aligned with the United States and their regime change aspirations in Venezuela, right? So she essentially is a stooge of a foreign power working against the interests of her country. And she says that she's working for democracy. So democracy is in the interest of everybody. And then the Nobel Prize Twitter account puts out a poll on Twitter that do you agree that democracy is the precondition for lasting peace in the world? What utter nonsense! Democracy is not a precondition for lasting peace anywhere in the world. So overall, this is a joke. The Nobel Peace Prize has become politicized. It has been so for a very long time. I mean, Henry Kissinger was given the Nobel Peace Prize. Come on. Barack Obama was given the Nobel Peace Prize. And a lot of nobodies are given the Nobel Peace Prize and elevated to a position of prominence. Malala Yousafzai. Why was she given the prize? Because she got shot. And who else? Who is this Kailash Satyarthi guy? And God knows who else. Teresa apparently got the prize. So it's now become like 100 times more prominent version of the Magsaysay Prize. The Magsaysay Prize is given to people who assist foreign powers in regime change operations in their own countries. Typically, not all. Let's just put that on the record. Not all, but many of these individuals who receive Magsaysay prizes are agents of foreign countries in their own countries. Many, not all. So the Nobel Prize has become that sort of thing. The Nobel Peace Prize, at least, and the Physics Prize is also a joke now. There seems to be a policy in the Physics Prize that you will not give a Physics Prize, Nobel Physics Prize to anyone who is less than 95 years old or something. Maybe less than 75 years old. Don't give to anyone who's young and who will be motivated by the prize. Give it to someone who's finished and done and dusted with their life. So the Nobel has become a joke now. That's all I would say. ICMBs says, what's your take on Takachi? I have no idea on Takachi. I've not paid attention. It doesn't matter who Takachi is. Okay, let's read. She seems like an ultra nationalist and not what the Yanks would want if elected. Could she think? Could she change things geopolitically? We'll see if it happens. Look, the Japanese prime minister doesn't matter. There's only been one prime minister since 1945 who actually mattered, and he was taken care of. His name was Shinzo Abe. Right? Sadly, apart from Shinzo Abe, no other Japanese prime minister has mattered in any way whatsoever, geopolitically or in any other way. The Japanese prime ministership is a revolving door thing. Someone comes and someone goes. Someone comes and comes. Someone goes. Noburu Takeshita and God knows who else you had. I don't even remember the names anymore. Nakasone. Nakasone-san was there a long time ago. Takeshita and I don't even remember who the last two, three guys were. They came and went, came and went. So Takachi, if she comes, well, I don't know. We'll see if she becomes, she does anything of any significance. Beyond that, I don't really pay attention to who becomes the Japanese prime minister. It doesn't matter. So Japan is a country under foreign occupation. This prime ministership, this parliament, the laws, etc., are just for show. The person who is prime minister doesn't get to control anything whatsoever. They just go, I mean, they take care of some internal affairs and they're like a mayor essentially. No actual real power. The actual real power lies with the US generals who run the country. So doesn't really matter, unfortunately, sadly. And it's actually tragic for Japan. Tragic. Tanmay says, one, was Trump's speech push just a cover to back pro-US Machado, who could give America vital oil access against Russia, China, and could India's next major operation launch from Afghan soil? I think it's a little too early to jump to conclusions about India launching Operation Sindoor from Afghan soil. It's a little early for that. I don't expect that to happen unless the Pakistanis cross certain lines. So I'll answer the second question first because it's two questions in one. I think it may be beneficial. It may be worth exploring for India to maybe supply a few missiles to Afghanistan, certain specific kinds of missiles. Maybe not the BrahMos, for example, but maybe the Akash missile system. The Akash is something that the Pakistanis are by now frightened of. Okay, it will take out any Pakistani aircraft, any kind of aircraft the Pakistanis have that tries to come over Kabul. The Akash aircraft will take it down. The Akash missile system. Maybe we should supply some Akash systems to Afghanistan. That'll set the cat among the pigeons. But I don't expect India's next major operation to launch from Afghan soil. Not an Indian operation. Maybe Afghan operations could launch from Afghan soil. So my point is, operations could possibly soon be launched from Afghan soil, depending on Pakistan's attitude and behavior. But those will be Afghan operations, and maybe there will be moral support from India, perhaps, because Pakistan is a terrorist nation. Imagine the Taliban considers Pakistan to be a terrorist nation. The Taliban were tarnished as terrorists for decades, right? And they are complaining that Pakistan is a terrorist nation. They harbor terrorists. What on earth is Donald Trump doing? He is aligning himself with a nation that has the worst reputation of terrorism in the world. Of course, he went and met a head chopper, didn't he? Al Julani, the terrorist who had a $10 million bounty on his head. A terrorist who was a professional head chopper. And now Trump goes and meets him. So these people, morality and ethics don't matter. National interest matters. And that's actually the way the world works. That's what Acharya Chanakya taught us. First question, was Trump's peace prize push just a cover to back pro-US Machado? Could be. Yeah, it's possible. Godliness says, people belonging to the world's oldest Saraswati Hindu civilization, the custodians of the Pashupati seal, the devotees of Raja Ram, the Lord Dharma, sadly today shake the hands of evil Islamist Taliban. Yeah. Who is the Taliban fighting? Pakistan. Would you like us to shake hands with Pakistan or Taliban? I am perfectly fine with shaking hands with the Taliban. The Taliban are not anti-India in any way whatsoever. I said at the beginning of this live stream, watch those two episodes, Ask Abhijit 38 and Ask Abhijit 40. At that time, I had made it clear that Taliban is not anti-India and it's not pro-Pakistan. It's not a Pakistani puppet. I am perfectly happy to shake hands with the Taliban, um, as long as they don't have any anti-India agenda, and they don't. They want to be left alone to rule their country in whichever way they feel fit, and I think they have the right to do that. They have brought back law and order in their country. They've destroyed corruption to a large extent. The roads in Kabul are better, allegedly, than the roads in most major cities, allegedly, in India. The Taliban are doing a lot of good for the country. It's an Islamic country, so they run the country according to Islamic laws. It's now an Islamic country. It is what it is. 1,000 years ago, it was ours. It was the Taliban are descendants of our people anyway. No, that's forget about that. So if you have a problem with them, giving women second class status, well, it's their religion that does that, and we should not comment about someone's religion, right? And if we shake hands with them, I see nothing wrong with that, none whatsoever. The world, as like I said, it doesn't work on the basis of ethics and morality and all that stuff. I mean, we shake hands with beef eaters, by the way. If you're talking about the devotees of Raja Ram and all that, aren't we shaking hands with beef eaters and hugging beef eaters? So then why not shake hands with the Taliban? I don't get it. Amisha says, why is the border tension rising between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Saudi-Pakistan treaty didn't even last a month. What does the Taliban foreign minister visit mean to India? Like I said, it means that Afghanistan is pivoting towards India. India and Afghanistan have shared interests, a lot of shared interests. And we have a very annoying shared enemy, right? We are not Pakistan's enemy. Pakistan is our enemy, and Pakistan is willing to sell itself piece by piece to the Americans so that America can encircle India. So that's what the Pakistanis represent, and they are a nuisance in the neighborhood. None of their three neighbors likes them. Their three neighbors are India, Afghanistan, and Iran, and all three of the neighbors wish that there was somebody else over there. Ideally, the situation should have been that India and Persia have a shared border, and the third border is Afghanistan. There should be no Pakistan. Then there'll be no terrorism. Everybody can live in peace, like we used to in the past. So, India and Afghanistan have this shared problem. Pakistan, how do we deal with this? So we'll find ways to deal with the Pakistanis, right? And we have other interests in Afghanistan. We have invested more than $3 billion worth of resources, money in Afghanistan. We've built dams. We have run agricultural projects. We have built the Salma Dam, like I said. We have invested a lot in Afghanistan, and it's a long-term investment. It's not something for short-term returns. So we're gonna continue that, and it is important for India that Afghanistan remains stable. We don't want another nonsense war over there, which lasts 20, 30 years. We don't need that. We want stability in our neighborhood. The only source of instability now is Pakistan, and it's a shared concern for India and Afghanistan. So I'm sure that we would have discussed the Pakistan issue mainly, and also Afghanistan's development. We don't want any humanitarian crisis in Afghanistan. We want to ensure that whatever supplies we're sending there reach there. The Afghans want us to, invest in their mining sector and all. I'm sure that is very feasible. So all of that, right? And when it comes to the Saudi-Pakistan treaty, look, it's nothing to do. The Saudi-Pakistan treaty is entirely aimed at India, and this treaty is actually orchestrated by the United States. The objective is to aim at India, not at the Taliban. So the Taliban Pakistan battle, which happened, may still be happening, perhaps, I don't know. That is something that was not anticipated, and the Saudis will not want to get involved in any way whatsoever in a Pakistan-Afghanistan fight. They don't want to get involved in that. They actually don't even want to be involved in the Pakistan-India fight, but the Americans have arm twisted them into this thing. So yeah, the Pakistanis now claim that that Afghanistan has attacked Pakistan and so on. The Saudis have stayed out of it. We are watching the issue with great concern. Blah blah blah. It may be a difference. See, the objective of this Pakistan Saudi Arabia defense treaty, etc., is to launder arms, ammunition, and weapon systems. The Americans don't want to sell everything directly to Pakistan. They will launder it through Saudi Arabia. And the objective is to make Pakistan strong enough so that it can withstand the next Operation Sindoor. So Marcos says, how do you see India-Taliban meeting? Explain. 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 I see it as a very positive thing, like I explained. Very positive thing. Excellent. Ritvik says, what USA China receive from Myanmar? Rare earth minerals. What India receives from Myanmar? Cookie terrorists. Yes. They are not immigrants, they are illegal infiltrators and they are terrorists. Why can't India increase its influence over Myanmar when it's right in our backyard? I'm not sure what we are doing vis-a-vis Myanmar. I'm not sure what we're doing. It looks like the government of India has been appeasing the cookie terrorists for a very long time. But the cookie terrorists are not Indian. Not Indian by blood, not Indian by ethnicity, not Indian by culture, by civilization, by religion, anything. No matter how much you appease a snake, the snake will always want to bite you when the opportunity arises. Right? So, does it not make sense to set things right for the native inhabitants of Manipur and the entire region overall? The Nagas and the Metis and the Nagas. Why is a certain ethnic group confined to like 3% of the state's area? It's apartheid. So I'm not sure what the government of India is doing. Maybe there are some constraints that we are not aware of. That's also a possibility. But I'm not sure. Why can't India increase its influence over Myanmar? We can, we should. This track 2.5 diplomacy and that nonsense is a waste of time. Let's have a proper thing with Myanmar, I would say. All these slow, steady little things, a bunch of suits, ancient suits visiting some parts of Myanmar and having some conversations and some speeches and stuff. That's a waste of time. What we need is to deal with the root cause of the terrorism, which is actually on Myanmar soil, on Myanmar territory. The rare earth minerals. The problem is that the rare earth minerals are located right on the Myanmar-China border, in the north east of Myanmar. It's like a stone's throw away from the Chinese border. So the Chinese receive these things, and I'm sure they pay the Myanmaris well for that. Not the Myanmar government, but whoever is ruling that part of Myanmar, because see, the Myanmar government has lost control over significant portions of its territory. So I have been a proponent of India increasing its influence in Myanmar for a very long time, for decades. But I'm sure we should do that. But I don't know. Maybe there's something afoot. Maybe the government of India has some plans, or maybe not. I have no idea. Dan Dave says, why has India failed to product great products in tech? Failed to produce great products in technology. We are still service based. Indian success in US does not benefit India in any way. It's because of the fundamental defects and deficiencies in the system. First of all, the old Indian entrepreneurs, the old companies, like all the IT firms and all, they were solely focused on profits, not on developing any technology whatsoever. They wanted to use the good old labor arbitrage method to make money. The American companies, they are willing to pay us X dollars per hour for software development work, and I will pay my employees a fraction of that, and the rest I will pocket. So let's say I am billing the US company that I'm working, that my employees are working for. Let's say I'm billing the American company $100 an hour, but I'll pay my employees a fraction of that, maybe $20 an hour, even less. Not an hourly rate, maybe a monthly rate. A monthly salary. That's it. Do overtime, whatever, you get a monthly salary. That way you can pocket huge amounts of money. And that's how all these Indian IT firms became big. So they did not want to take any risks. They would develop a product and it may or may not work in the market. Who wants to take the risk? We have a tried and true method of labor arbitrage that is guaranteed to give us money, to keep making money, minting money for us. So let's keep doing that. So that's been the mindset. And whatever profits they make, they will not reinvest that into R&D or anything. No, they will give it to the shareholders or whatever. That's been the mindset. The good old, I don't know what to call that mindset, but that's what it's been. Secondly, we don't have. So that's the problem of the big companies, the Infosys and the whatever the other companies are, right? When it comes to new tech entrepreneurs. They want to make unicorns that are valued at $1 billion on paper, but most of those, unfortunately, are actually loss making companies. They want to reach a valuation of $1 billion, then make an exit or something. That's another problem that we see. Thirdly, there may be lots of people with great ideas, but they don't have access to funding, right? Venture capital. I mean, let's say somebody in some city in India has a great idea for a product and they want to develop it, but they don't have access to funding. Where will they get the funding? You can leave your city and take a big risk and go to Bangalore, but there's no guarantee that you will be introduced to the right people. And if you get introduced to the right people, there's no guarantee that they will give you the right amount of money and all that. So we don't have this system in India that ensures success like what you have in Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is a place where you will get funding if you have the right ideas and so on. You just have to go and talk. You have to go and knock on doors. You know, as long as you have the right idea, it'll work. And they're okay in the US with failure. They're okay with high amounts of risk. In India, nobody likes failure. You fail once, it's like you become radioactive. In the US, it's okay to fail. Okay, try again, and eventually, if you're good enough, you'll succeed. So all of these issues are the are responsible for India having failed to develop great products. And of course, the ease of doing business. That's another huge issue in India, allegedly. Huge issue. You want to start a company, just getting a GST registration is such a headache, right? And there are all kinds of other issues that come in the way. So it demoralizes people. So too many problems in the country. Okay. Mr. Saxena says, what were US-Russia relations pre-World War II? Was there an event that created enemies after World War II, or did rivalry arise naturally from the two superpowers? US-Russia relations pre-World War II. Nothing significant as far as I can tell. The Americans in the 19th century purchased Alaska from Russia. And at that time, America did not see Russia as a problem. I mean, when whoever the president was, it was called his folly or something. So when that guy went ahead with this purchase of Alaska for a significant hefty amount of money, taking Alaska, giving money to Russia, it was called stupidity. It was called his folly, right? So the Americans, they did not see the Russian presence in the northern part of North America as a problem. So the US and Russia did not have a hostile relationship at that time. Even during the First World War, the Americans were not worried about Russia. It's only after World War II that they became worried about Russia, because Russia developed this massive, massive industrial base and a massive military base, tremendous millions and millions of soldiers, and so on. So that's what set off alarm bells in the US. Stalin had transformed this almost defeated country into a massive industrial superpower with a massive industrial base, massive military base, a huge standing army. And that was what made Russia a superpower. So after Russia's success in the Second World War, it is essentially Russia that defeated the Third Reich, Nazi Germany. That's when the US decided that, Russia is now the next problem. Anonymous scientist says, when once visited India, Pakistan did Pahalgam, and now when Muttaqi is in India, Pakistan attacked Kabul. Not a coincidence. Probably not. There are no coincidences in geopolitics. When Pakistan launches an airstrike on Kabul, Pakistan is sending a message to the Afghan government, to the Taliban government. And if it comes at the time when the Taliban foreign minister is in India, obviously it's a message to the Afghans that you can go and make friends with India, but it will cost you, that sort of thing. And Pakistan obviously is a lapdog. It's a lapdog of whom? Of the United States. So there are no coincidences. I'm sure it's all interconnected, interrelated, and we just have to understand what messages are being sent and to whom. Udaya Kiran says, Venezuela Lop, leader of parliament, Lop, whatever, received Nobel Peace Prize. Is deep state behind the prize since American companies faced losses by left in Venezuela? The US is the deep state behind this prize. Of course it is. Yeah, of course. The Nobel Peace Prize is a political prize. It's given for as a reward for services rendered, or to prop up a person as a person of eminence and prominence for future services to be rendered to the empire. So this lady who has been awarded the Peace Prize, she is the Venezuelan equivalent of Mohammed Yunus. Mohammed Yunus was this guy who ran this Grameen Bank thing in Bangladesh, and he used to charge tremendous amounts of you know money for little loans and all that, and they would collect the money back no matter what happened. Very hard-handed thing. Uh, so he wasn't exactly good for his people, but they gave him the Nobel Prize, which has turned him into some kind of great saint in the eyes of the Bangladeshis. And now he has been weaponized in this manner that after Sheikh Hasina was ousted, the Bangladesh is now being run by a military government. But to give it legitimacy, you have put a Nobel Prize winner as the chief advisor. All legitimate, all good now. Where's the democracy, by the way? No democracy. Anyway, so the Americans probably want to do a regime change operation in Venezuela now and grab all the oil. Why have a third world country control so much oil in Latin America? We should have it. So it looks like the Americans are planning a regime change operation, and whenever it happens, they will install this lady as the puppet leader or something. So yes, that's the deal. Adi Ayu says, your take on intercaste marriage all around the country to unite the country and end casteism and eventually end reservations. We are discussing geopolitics, sir. Today I will not discuss other things. You can ask this question some other time. Today we're discussing geopolitics. This has nothing to do with geopolitics. I apologize, but I've made it very clear. This is a geopolitics super chat episode. Please look at the title of the episode. So we discuss geopolitics today. I apologize, but I can't take this question right now. Shonak Kokate, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very nice of you. Thank you. Ganapati says, CIA agent James Watson, US Army major, was arrested in Bhiwandi, okay, Maharashtra, for illegal conversion activities. Not the first time the Yanks are causing trouble. 2611 was CIA Mossad job. I don't know about that, okay? I don't know about that. Is the government of India taking the Anglo-Saxon threat seriously? I'm sure it is. So this James Watson, I have not heard of this news, but okay. So it's no surprise that these things happen. There are all these intelligence agents or whatever you want to call them who come to India on tourist visas and then they go around doing conversions, which is completely illegal. So I'm glad that if this has happened, then it's good. James Watson Bhiwandi. Let's quickly Google this, shall we? Let's Google this. James Watson Bhiwandi. James Watson Bhiwandi. US national arrested in Maharashtra for illegal religious. Fate of US citizen uncertain. Allegedly attempting to convert villagers. Bhiwandi police arrest 58-year-old American citizen. Hinduism is based on superstition. Why don't you go back to your country and mind your own business? So yeah, so obviously all of this is see what they want to achieve is that they want to achieve industrial scale conversions in India to make Indians move away from their culture and their civilizational framework and start following a certain foreign religion. And that certain foreign religion has always had the effect of turning people it has had the effect of the people who convert to that religion, that those people, they very rapidly develop extraterritorial loyalties. They stop being loyal to their country and their culture. The Japanese have written about this, the Chinese have written about this in the 19th century and before that. So it's well known what happens when people convert to a certain foreign religion. So that religion is being used as a weapon against India, so that they can create a fifth column in the country. So I'm glad that the person was arrested. I hope that that person will actually be imprisoned and not extradited back to the US. Spend a few years enjoying India's hospitality, that sort of thing. Is the government of India taking the Anglo-Saxon threat seriously? Look, it's not an Anglo-Saxon threat. It's an American threat. The objective is to fragment India. Now, if I was the US, I would want to do the same thing, of course. But since we are India, we have to play defense. So it's not exactly Anglo-Saxon or whatever, but it is what it is. So I hope the government of India is taking it seriously, but I'm not sure it is entirely taking it seriously. Uh, I- Ideally, we should end all attempts to convert even a single person in the country. End all conversion activities. But yeah, okay. MK says earlier you said Modi may vassalize India to Trump. I have discussed all kinds of scenarios. So what's the problem? I discuss all kinds of scenarios. Feel Strong Man says geography is the most important factor in geopolitics. What if Russia had two oceans on both sides? I was about to ask that what exactly are you asking? The most important factor in geopolitics, is it geography? It's one of the most important factors. What if Russia had two oceans on two sides? I was about to ask what if India discovered gunpowder first, but on Wednesday, you shocked me when you said that we actually were. We did have discovered gunpowder before China. It's well known, but it's not well known. It's suppressed. It is suppressed. It was called Agni Churn, and we had it before China. But that if you ask Wikipedia, if you ask Chat GPT, if you ask Google, they will say China, and they will say that you are doing conspiracy nonsense. So that's how it has been suppressed. Now that's a whole different story. Now, geography is the most important factor in geopolitics. It's one of the most important factors. And every nation is a prisoner of its own geography. You can't escape that. What if Russia had two oceans on two sides? It would have been tremendously beneficial for Russia, for sure. Right? Because then they would have the ability to easily access various oceans. Right now, it's difficult for them to access the Atlantic Ocean. They have to go through various choke points that are controlled by their adversaries. Even when it comes to the Eastern Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, from Russia's perspective, if they want to send the fleet from Vladivostok out into the Pacific, they have to pass through US occupied choke points in Japan. So the US knows exactly what the Russians are doing. That's the deal. So yeah, Russia is constrained by that. Even China is constrained by the three island chains and so on. And that's where India has a massive advantage, but we don't take advantage of that advantage. Shonak Kokare says, how is it possible for Poland to firmly say that we will not take any refugees despite being part of the European Union? Because they have a strong leader. And the leader actually seems to care about the country and the people and the long term future of the country. So it's entirely possible for this to happen, and maybe it's dangerous for a leader to do that. So right now, I suppose they're paying a fine, a daily fine for not taking refugees and so on. So the question is, what does Poland benefit from being part of the EU? Maybe there are benefits, but there are these huge problems and constraints, right? So it's possible any nation can say no technically, and some nations actually do that. Poland and Hungary both refuse to take refugees. But Poland is made to pay a daily fine of several $1 million every day, at least $1 million per day, for not accepting the demands of Brussels to harbor these horrific refugees in their territory. Ajay Sharma says, at 24, nearly a decade in Deutschland, Germany, capped pay, fake pensions, dumb youth. Even if the US controls EU, they share roots. Why collapse their own race? Why collapse their own race? That's quite a question you asked here. Yeah, the Americans, the Anglo-Saxons, they have close blood relations with the Germans, for sure. English, after all, is a Germanic language. The Anglo-Saxons, the Saxony is in Germany. That's where the Saxons came from and invaded and conquered England. And the Angles also came from Anglia or whatever it was, a part of Germany. So the Anglo-Saxons are Germanic people. And why are they destroying Germany now? Yeah, well, yeah, that's a good question. Why collapse your own race? Why destroy Europe, the place you all came from? Yeah, beats me. Beats me. Why would the Americans do that? What do they gain from that? One possibility is that they no longer care about race. They only care about the United States should rule the world. And Europe should be deindustrialized and messed up so badly that it can never challenge the United States ever, because Germany is the one nation that challenged the United States in the 1930s and 1940s, right? The Second World War, and Germany was very powerful. They had a tremendous work ethic and tremendously high standards, and that's something that I'm sure concerns the Americans. So maybe the reason is that they don't want to see the birth of a fourth Reich sometime in the future, whenever it may happen, and they don't want the Germans to be in any way positioned to in the future create a third Reich. So what was the basis of the third Reich? It was the concept of the Übervolk. The Germans are the Übermensch, the master race, right? They destroy the race, then there is no question of a master race, and there's no question of a fourth Reich, right? So maybe that's the thinking, the logic, the rationale behind it, perhaps, or maybe there's something else behind it. Well, okay. Adi says, I'm tired of seeing my friends going to college and becoming anti Hindu leftists with absolutely no geopolitical knowledge. We all are tired of that, but to ensure that this doesn't happen and keep happening, we will need to have educational reforms in the country. And the government seems to be absolutely uninterested in that. The government wants to do infrastructure development, the government wants to do economic development or to a certain level, all that. But if you don't solve the problems, then eventually the whole country will move away from its own culture. So and then the Bangladeshi problem. So eventually you're building all this infrastructure, this economy and all, but you're handing it over to whom? That's the question. What are you doing all this for? If you want to fix these issues, but the government seems to have absolutely no intention of fixing these issues, which is frustrating. But what can I say now? Prataradana says, did India oppose the US in a Bagram case by improving relations with the Afghan Taliban? Is India helping the US by keeping China out, or is Pakistan working for the US? Pakistan is working for the US. First of all, please be very clear about that. Pakistan became a US vassal in the year 2022 when Imran Khan was ousted and whoever is currently the prime minister was brought to power. Shehbaz Sharif. He's a US stooge. He's a puppet. Okay. And Pakistan is now selling its resources to the Americans. Last time when Shehbaz Sharif and that Munir fellow, they went to the White House and they were, hosted by Trump. They came with a box of rare earths and minerals and showed it to Trump. See, this is what you get. This is what we will sell you. But you have to line our pockets, that sort of thing. So the Pakistanis are in America's hands. They are no longer aligned with China. So yeah, first of all, Pakistan is working for the US. Secondly, is India helping the US by keeping China out of Afghanistan? Not quite. No, this has nothing to do with China or the US. Did India oppose a US base in Bagram by... Did India oppose a US base in Bagram? India has kept quiet about this. India has not expressed any opinions about Bagram base. I have not seen any statements from India's Ministry of External Affairs or any other government officials about Bagram. So I have personally not seen that. So as far as I know, India is staying out of this matter. It's a bilateral matter between the US and Afghanistan. By improving relations with Afghan Taliban, is India helping the US by keeping China out? I don't think so. Is China being kept out? We'll see about that. As far as I know, China may have given recognition to the Taliban. Russia certainly has. So I'm not sure we are keeping China out and helping the US. I think it's a bilateral thing we are doing with Afghanistan. And Afghanistan also has good relations with China and Russia as well. So it's, once again, you see the three letters once again here, RIC. So that's what I can say as of now. The way the situation is evolving. I don't think India is doing anything to keep China out of Afghanistan, for sure. Anish says, big fan. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Being NRI, what can we do to report news that are India biased? Says one side story to show India's down. I report APL news. Okay, let me see what is APL news. Let's see. What is AP? APL News. American President Lines, is that what? APL News? Okay, maybe this is the one. Anyway, so you are an NRI, and what can you do as a reporter to report news that are India biased? That says one-sided story to show India down. What you should do as a journalist is to show balanced news. And if somebody is running anti-India narratives and propaganda, you can debunk that using facts. So it is true that India right now is facing this barrage of anti-India propaganda all across the media, various news outlets, media outlets, big and small, and also across social media, as we know very well. So India is currently the most kind of most targeted nation currently in the Western media. So in case you are in Western media, what you can do is debunk the misinformation with facts. That's the best you can do. You, as a journalist, you need to have your own code of morality and ethics, and as a journalist, you're actually you're duty bound to present factual and balanced news. But of course, that is all theoretical. Today, no one does that, and I understand that totally fine, because journalism has now become a tool of propaganda. If you work for any media outlet, you will have to do whatever the media outlet tells you, the bosses tell you, and the bosses will do whatever whoever is paying them tells them to do. That's how it works. So essentially, if you want to do something about the situation, you should report factual and balanced news, and whatever misinformation is being spread, to whatever extent is possible for you, you should debunk that using actual facts. That's what you should do. All right, sir. All the best. Great job. Keep going. 6P70 Delta says, some people say Modi has made India aligned to the US and follows US orders, and many of them simp for China a lot. What's my opinion on such people and their wild claims? Is India aligned with the US? The US is very upset with India. The US wanted a trade deal very favorable to the US. Right? They had given us a deadline of God knows what month was it? I forget now what month it was. June, July, whatever. And we refused to go along with the American imposed deadline. We said that a trade deal, if it happens, has to be balanced. It has to benefit both countries. It cannot simply benefit you. What the Americans wanted is that India should open up its entire market to American imports with zero tariffs. So America should be allowed to export whatever it wants to India, flood the Indian market without incurring any tariffs. India should also open up its agricultural sector to American exports, so that America can export their horrific dairy products and their horrific GMO organism agricultural exports into India, which will make Indians diabetic and as sick as the Americans. And it will destroy India's agricultural sector and India's farm sector. That's what the Americans wanted. Modi has refused to do that. The Americans are extremely upset about that. That's why they have imposed 50% tariffs on India. Right? Does it look like India is aligned with the US? It's not. I mean, the facts are the facts, right? India follows US orders. Where does India follow US orders? Come on. We blasted Pakistan in Operation Sindoor. The Americans, once again, were very upset with that. Is that India following US orders? Trump said that I negotiated the ceasefire. India has refused to accept this lie. India has pointed out that it's a lie multiple times. Does it look like India is following US orders? So people will say whatever they want. They will listen to their favorite YouTuber or influencer, and they will absorb whatever nonsense is being peddled over there. So what can I say about that? Such people. What's my opinion? I have no opinion about them. I don't think about such people. And they simp for China and so on. Prataradana says consequences of US base in Pakistan if it happens. Consequences of a US base in Pakistan, it will mean that the US gets more power projection capabilities in our area. Let's take a look at the map. Okay. We haven't opened the map yet today. Well, here's where we do it. So let's say the US acquires a base in Pakistan. Let's say somewhere in the Makran coast region, near Gwadar or whatever. So if they acquire a base here, for example, on the coastline, they will be able to use it as a naval base. So American warships could dock there, whether it is destroyers or submarines or aircraft carriers or whatever remains to be seen. But they'll be able to dock there. That's number one. And if they also acquire an airbase kind of facility, then they'll be able to project power from this region along a very wide area. The thing is that the Americans already have various air bases. For example, if you go to Qatar, then 1 second, they have this one here, Abu Naklah, which the Americans essentially operate. If you look at these aircraft here, you will see very distinctive American aircraft over here. So the Americans already have power projection capabilities in the region. See, Qatar is not really far away from the subcontinent. They also have Diego Garcia over here. If you look here, you will find that they have a massive base here, which is not only a naval base but also an air base. See here. So they have the kind of power projection capabilities that they need in the region to be able to, let's say, threaten, if required, India and other countries in the region. Qatar gives them that ability. Diego Garcia gives them that ability. And if they want more of that, they can acquire a base in Pakistan. So from Pakistan, they'll be able to project more power if and when required. For example, if they want to take down the Iranian regime in the future, they could do it from multiple locations, from Qatar, from Pakistan, and Israel, of course, could also get involved, and so on. So it gives them more options. If they want to, let's say, target the Taliban for whatever reason, they can do it from Pakistan. If they want to target India for whatever reason, they can also do it from Pakistan. Right? So these are the consequences of a US base in Pakistan if it happens. It gives America more options for projecting power, and it allows them to keep an eye on Iran, Afghanistan, and India, and possibly threaten all three countries if required. Kajuro Bitathon says, what would you say are the most propagandized people in the world today that believe the most falsehoods? Indians. The Chinese, the Americans, Europeans, Russians, Indians, Pakistanis, and North Koreans. See, first of all, I would say Indians are super propagandized. Indians live in delusional la la land. So Indians are definitely near the very top of the list. Americans are also super propagandized. Their own media propagandizes them. They believe all kinds of weird stuff. Okay, Americans have no understanding of the world. If you ever go to the US and you meet people who live not in New York City or Washington DC something, but in regular towns and in small cities and all, you will find that they have no understanding of what is beyond their nose, essentially. If you ask them to locate, let's say, Poland on a map, they will have no idea how to locate Poland. If you ask them to locate Papua New Guinea, they will have no way of doing it. They will even struggle to locate India or China or Russia on a map. And they will not know what's happening in the world. So they are super, Americans are also super propagandized, of course, with social media and all. It's more now. The Chinese, of course, they will to some extent be propagandized by their government. Europeans, the Japanese are propagandized. They believe in peace. They believe whatever is taught in their education system. North Korea, I'm sure there's propaganda. Pakistanis are, of course, worse than Indians, for sure. Pakistanis. Russians, I'm not sure about what's the situation in Russia. So everybody is victim to some forms of propaganda here and there. But some of the most propagandized people in the world are Indians, Pakistanis, North Koreans for sure, even Americans. Europeans also. Everyone's propagandized. I don't know whom to rate the highest. Indians are deluded. Indians live in delusions. They live in la la lands. Indians believe that we are like 30 minutes away from being a superpower. And we are Vishwaguru. We are neither a Vishwaguru nor a superpower. Will not be a superpower even in 2050. But we should be a great power by 2050. That's what we should work towards. And Vishwaguru, please So see, this is all propaganda. It's nonsense. India is a land of slogans. Slogan, slogan, slogan. Every day new slogan comes up and we all believe that these slogans. Yeah. 6P70 Delta says a Ukrainian outlet claims that Russia is withdrawn Asian ethnicities like Buryats from its umbrella. From its what? Umbrella. War. What is that symbol? From its war. Army. Okay. Russia is withdrawing Asian ethnicities like Buryats from its army as they are weaker than Ukrainian soldiers. Is it true or is it racist neo-Nazi propaganda? I am not aware of the Russian government withdrawing any such any specific ethnicities from the armed forces. I'm not aware of that. I think that's nonsense. Russia would not do that. I don't think so. The Buryats. Who are the Buryats? Okay, first of all, if you are discussing the Buryats, who are the Buryats? The Buryats are descendants of Mongols. You really think Mongols are weaker than Ukrainians? Do you know? So I'm just saying, I'm not saying to you specifically, the person who asked the question, but do we know the history of Mongolia? Do we think Mongols are weak? This is utter nonsense, clearly. Yeah. If you wanted to double check who the Buryats are, let's do it. I said that they're descendants of Mongols, right? Buryats. Who are the Buryats? Ethnic group, Buryat language. The Yakuts. Buryats ancestry. Buryats ancestry. What is their ancestry? See, Mongolic speaking nomadic tribes. Okay. Their ancestry is Mongol. So my point is, are the Ukrainians, if they are claiming this, are they saying that Mongols are weaker than Ukrainians? Do they not know anything about their own history? Huh? Okay, so this is a joke, clearly. Don't take it seriously. Anamalai, thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. My favorite person is back. James is back. Your ancient monuments are small, fragile. Europe builds ginormous monuments, Cologne Cathedral, Colosseum, Versailles. We even shaped the modern era. Cheerio, tea. Yes, our ancient monuments are small and fragile. But you see, first of all, let's address the first point that you're talking about. Our ancient monuments are small and fragile. We have monuments sitting at the bottom of the sea, of the ocean, for about 10,000 years. The Gulf of Khambat Archaeological Complex, Dwarka. Gulf of Khambat Archaeological Complex is about 10 or 11,000 years old. It's a network of cities laid out in grid structure that's sitting at the bottom of the ocean for about 10,000 years, since the last glacial period. Fragile? How come it's still there? Dwarka is still there. Our monuments, our ancient monuments, small, fragile. We have pretty colossal architecture in some parts of India. The rest was destroyed by the Turks. Okay. Now, when it comes to monuments, when it comes to colossal monuments, these colossal monuments have to serve some function in society, right? See, for example, take the pyramids of Egypt. Gigantic mega monuments. How did these gigantic mega monuments that took so much slave labor to build, how did they serve society? How? A monument has to serve society. Anything that is constructed has to serve society. In India, we had these grand temples that actually served society. They did not simply function as a place of spiritual and religious solace or whatever. They also functioned as centers of education. They had a central role in society and in preparing the future generations of society. So in India, our monuments were functional monuments, and we had a great sense of beauty and aesthetics. Even small monuments, if you see how beautifully, intricately they were carved, it made the country so beautiful, right? Yes, Europe builds ginormous monuments, Cologne Cathedral, you have something in Barcelona and so on. What purpose does it serve to society, and where did the money come from? The Colosseum, good. The Colosseum was about keeping the rabble occupied. Yeah, keeping the rabble occupied while the politicians do their thing. Versailles and so on. We shaped the modern era. See, the modern era that you're talking about is the era of colonization and foreign occupation by the Europeans and destruction of non-European societies and cultures, and plundering these cultures and societies and enriching Europe as a consequence. And once so much money and treasure and gold and so much flows in, you've got to do something with it. So you build big things. So it's a monument to 500 years of European rapacious oppression of the world, and I'm glad that era is now ending. When it comes to the UK, Londonistan, Britanistan, that's what you are becoming, and it is now a fait accompli. C'est fini pour vous. Okay, it's done. You're done. In the next few years, you're going to be an Islamic Republic, and I congratulate the Muslim people of Britain for having won. You've already won. Enjoy. So enjoy what happens to those monuments after the takeover. Enjoy that. Biju Sai says, do you think CIA deep state had any role in the dissolution of the yes? Or does the entire credit go to Mr. Gorbachev? Did the CIA and deep state have any role in the dissolution of the USSR, or does the entire credit go to Mr. Gorbachev? Can this happen to China? The entire credit cannot go to Mr. Gorbachev. The Americans, the CIA, deep state, whatever you want to call it, they also played a big role in this, in putting all the pieces in place and, possibly reaching out to Mr. Gorbachev. Not sure. I'm just saying. So it's not entirely Mr. Gorbachev. The Americans also tightened the noose around the Russians. The Russians had their own problems, internal problems. Their standards were declining, dropping. There was too much corruption. There was too much decay in Russia. And then Gorbachev is the guy who put the final nails in the coffin, but with the help of the US. So I would not say it's entirely Gorbachev who takes the credit. The Americans also take the credit, and the Americans won. Can the same happen in China? It's less likely for that to happen in China. For that to happen in China, China's standards need to drop, which is not happening. And you need a leader like Gorbachev in China, which you don't have right now. In the future, it could happen. It could happen in the future, but right now, it's not anywhere close to happening. Okay. Pratibha says, good evening. Well, good evening. Thank you very much. Happy Deepavali in advance. Okay, thank you so much. I thought you were going to ask a question. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Really, very much. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much, ma'am. Pratibha ji. Thank you so much. 6P70 Delta says, in response to India, US wanting to have US military base in India, AIM told cases of US soldiers abusing Japanese girls being tried in US courts, not Japanese courts, and not held guilty most of the time, is being vassal so bad. If you are a vassal, you have to face regular humiliation. The behavior of American troops who occupy Japan is abominable. Abominable. Look it up. Look at Okinawa protests against US. Let's see. Okay, Okinawa protests against US military abuse, for example. I don't want to use that word. Okay, endured a history of crimes spanning decades. See, sexual assault case in Okinawa. It's regular. It's routine. And these soldiers, these American occupation soldiers who do this to Japanese girls and women, they are not tried in Japanese courts. They'll be tried in US courts, and they'll be punished by the US. And usually the punishment is a slap on the wrist. Typically, nothing much more than that. I mean, what the Americans did in Iraq, in various prisons. Okay, I don't even want to discuss that. That's how horrific it is. What happened? How badly were the perpetrators punished? Very light punishments. So yeah, being a vassal is terrible. If you have a good overlord, if you are a vassal to a good overlord, then you may not be humiliated that much. You of course have to endure some humiliation, some ritual humiliation at least. But if you are the vassal of a nasty overlord, you face all kinds of issues such as these, what the Japanese face. and there's nothing they can do about it, right? Teen Talks Dharma says, you said Taliban is supported by the US and Pakistan and also US puppet. I must have said that 5 years ago, sir. When did I say that? I must have said that 5 years ago or something. The world is changing, sir. The world is changing very rapidly. Every 2 weeks, the situation changes now. Right? I must have discussed this God knows when. The Taliban is no one's puppet today. Okay, let's think about it clearly. It is true that there are allegations that the Taliban is receiving a stipend of about between 30 to $100 million in cash every week from the US. It is so. In case that is true, the Taliban was given power by the US after the accord, the negotiations and the accord in Doha. And there were secret clauses to this deal, to this accord, which have not been released to the public. So clearly, there is some kind of understanding or agreement between the Taliban and the US that the Taliban will play some kind of role in the region that will be beneficial to the US. Most likely keeping China out. Most likely nothing beyond that. And in exchange for that, the Americans are paying them a certain amount of money every week. So, yeah, to that extent, you could say there is some US role in Taliban, in the Taliban and the Afghanistan relationship. Pakistan also is a US puppet. True. So is if the master is same, then why fight? Okay, great question. Now I understand what you're asking. If the master is the same, then why fight? So Pakistan is a US vassal. Taliban has an understanding in some kind of deal with the US, and they're performing some kind of service that the Americans want, and that's why the Americans are paying them. So then, why should the two fight? Because the Taliban is not a vassal. Pakistan is. The Taliban has an understanding of some kind, some secret understanding of some kind with the US, but not a vassalhood relationship. The US was done with Afghanistan. They were done with their occupation of Afghanistan, 20 years they did. And they said, time's up now. We should leave. We should not waste any more time, resources, or energy over here. We'll hand over to the Taliban and they will play a certain role for us. That's it. So the Taliban is an independent sovereign government, mostly sovereign. And they are not American vassals. Pakistan is. And the Americans are right now pressurizing the Taliban also to get the Bagram airbase and possibly to re-vassalize Afghanistan to the US. But the Taliban doesn't want that. The Taliban are Pashtun nationalists. And for them, it is a humiliation to be someone's vassal. And that's why they fought so many years. Decades they fought. So that they don't have to be anyone's vassal. And most likely the agreement that they have with the US, the secret agreement, it is not a vassalhood agreement, which is why the Taliban are now, fighting the Pakistanis. And the Pakistanis are hitting the Taliban with American-made weapons, F-16s and whatnot. So the Taliban don't recognize the US as a master. The Pakistanis are lapdogs of the US. Very big difference. And the Taliban have this big issue with Pakistan. First of all, terrorism, constant terrorism. And secondly, territorial dispute. The Afghans claim a big chunk of Pakistani territory. So that's the deal. Abhishek Srivastav says, your views on Amit Shah's statement on rising Muslim population, I have no views on this. Anomalai says, how to stop India from becoming like Londonistan, where civil war is incoming MMA training for RSS to prevent future partition or civil war in India. I am discussing geopolitics, sir. We'll discuss geopolitics. We'll not discuss internal matters of India in this episode. And I generally don't discuss these issues anyway. So apologies, but I can't take this question. Adi Ayu says, Bihar stands on the edge of fall. Once again, this is not a geopolitics question. Congress, RJD, this is internal politics, which I don't have any significant understanding of. So I can't take this question. Please ask questions about geopolitics. I implore you, because I will not take other questions. Fast Snail says, rumor has it that there was a Tashkent-like the possibility of a Tashkent-like situation at this Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Russia saved it from happening. How to believe? Do you buy that? I am not sure. Whoever has put out this theory, how do they know this? How do they know it? Were they present in Shanghai or at the summit? Mr. Modi said something in some public appearance that are you clapping because I'm here, or are you clapping because I was able to come back, or something like that. I'm not sure if it means what is being, what it's being assumed to mean. I'm not sure about that. I personally have no evidence that there was any plan or plot by an external power to assassinate Mr. Modi. I've heard of this rumor, but this rumor has been presented as a story without any evidence whatsoever. The only evidence, circumstantial evidence, that is given is that Mr. Putin invited Mr. Modi into his car, his limousine, and they drove around for about 45 minutes. And it is being said that Mr. Putin did this so that Mr. Modi is not targeted at that time. Apparently, Mr. Putin was aware there was some plan. That's the claim that is being made. Do we have any evidence of this? We don't have any evidence of it. So what can I say? I will say that this is a story without any evidence. So what can be claimed without evidence can also be dismissed without evidence. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying there is no evidence. So I can't discuss further beyond that. Godliness says, what's the future of Gaza after the so-called ceasefire? Will it sustain, or is it an everlasting war? This is now over, I think. This ceasefire is essentially the demilitarization of Hamas. Trump has given Hamas a final ultimatum. Agree to my demands, put down your weapons. You can stay in Gaza if you want, you can leave to some other country if you want, that's your choice, we will not stop you. But this is it. And if you don't agree to this, I am giving permission to Netanyahu to completely flatten Gaza and nobody will survive. So that was the ultimatum Trump gave them, and they have accepted it because they know that this is it. If they don't agree, they're finished. They'll be vaporized. So what happens now is that they will hand over, or if they've already handed over, I'm not sure, but they will hand over all the hostages. And then they will demilitarize. Then the Israeli military will create a cordon around Gaza. Then some external government will come in and take over. Maybe it is Fatah. Maybe it is some international prominent people who will be part of this government, this temporary government that will govern Gaza. And then Gaza will be redeveloped in some way. Maybe Trump Towers will come up over there, or maybe casinos will come up over there or something. But Gaza is essentially done. And what this ceasefire means is that Israel has won. And they will reframe and reshape Gaza in whatever way they want. That's essentially what it means. So it's a victory for Israel. That's what the ceasefire means. 66P70 Delta says Putin has set a goal this year to raise Russia's TFR to 2.1 by 2030. Will he be successful? Also, regarding last live stream comment, please search images of Brezhnev yacht, very similar to my photo in the dark. Okay, let's search for Brezhnev yacht, shall we? Brezhnev yacht. Brezhnev yacht. Okay. He looks like me, does he? I don't see it, but okay, if you say so. Okay, that looks like him with his family. Very nice. All right. Okay. So now let's come to the question. Putin has set a goal. So let's first of all find out what is Russia's TFR right now, shall we? Russia TFR 2025. What is it? It's 1.83 children per woman. Can it be brought up to 2.1 by 2030? I suppose with the right kinds of incentives and whatnot, it is possible. I think it will be challenging to bring up the TFR to that, but it's certainly possible. So you have to ask yourself, what is it that brings the TFR down? When people are overworked, when they're exhausted by working too hard and too many hours, then they can't procreate. Secondly, if it's very expensive to raise children, If the education is super expensive, if there are tremendous hurdles in the way of getting good education, if if healthcare is expensive, then all of those factors have people will force people to have less children or to have no children at all. So if you and if the women are working, and if when they deliver a child they are forced to get back to work in, let's say, 4 weeks or whatever it is, then that's a huge problem, right? Who will take care of the child in situations where you have nuclear families? It's a huge problem. So so to bring the TFR up, you have to first of all ensure that people are not overworked, people have a balanced lifestyle. You work 8 hours and then spend the rest of the day doing whatever you want, right? Don't work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours a day, like is the norm in India these days, in the private sector and whatnot, right? That's one thing. So people should not be overworked, they should not be exhausted, they should not be mentally burned out, physically burned out. Secondly, women, when they have children, when they are pregnant, they should be given time off. And when they give birth, they should have, I don't know, at least 6 months or something. It's not good for the economy. Yeah, that's one perspective you can put forth. But secondly, it will bring up the TFR if they get that much time, downtime, to spend child time with the child and raise the child at least 6 months, maybe 1 year. So with the right incentives, and then if you make, for example, education very affordable, in healthcare very affordable, then people will start having more kids. So with the right kinds of incentives, and maybe you can give tax breaks to people who have more than two children or something. Not people, maybe the mother. If you have more than two children, you get you pay no income tax, or no, you pay no tax whatsoever. That again is an incentive to having children, more children. So by using the right kinds of incentives, it's certainly possible to bring the TFR up from 1.83 to 2.1. Certainly possible. Yeah. Mr. Saxena says Switzerland isn't part of the EU, EEA, or NATO. Does it make it a quasi sovereign country, or there's more to it? Uh, I would say there's more to it. Okay. It's a small, tiny country, very beautiful country, very nice people, etc. Okay. Which sits in the middle of all these big countries, and it's always remained neutral. Well, until recently. Now it's not that neutral. For example, it froze bank accounts of various Russian government things and all. So it's no longer that neutral. But even during the Second World War, for example, Germany was overrunning all of Europe, but they decided that we will not touch Switzerland. We'll leave it alone. Right? So why was Switzerland given this preferential treatment? Because Switzerland plays a role in Europe. It provides a certain kind of service to the people of Europe. Whoever you are, no matter how much money you have, if you want a safe place to keep the money, you do it here. The condition is you don't touch Switzerland. You stay out of it. You leave us alone. We'll safeguard your money. We'll ask no questions. Where did the money come from? Who were the original owners of the treasures and gold that you're putting here? We'll not ask any questions. It is safe. We guarantee that. But you have to leave us alone. You don't mess with our sovereignty or territorial integrity. So that's the deal. So that is the service Switzerland has been providing in exchange for remaining kind of sovereign. So it is, from that perspective, very sovereign. They have a national defense force. Every adult male, now I don't know, but maybe women also, I'm not sure. Used to be men. Everybody undergoes military training every 3-4 years. You have to undergo a few weeks of military training. Every adult male, at least I know of, had a gun in their house, which was provided by the government, and ammunition. And they have tunnels and whatnot across the country where the army can be mobilized, and people, arms, ammunition can be hidden, and so on. So they are well prepared for a possible potential invasion also, if it ever happens. So all these factors make Switzerland kind of a sovereign country. I would say it's no country of that size is entirely sovereign. So yeah, it kind of makes it a quasi sovereign country. As long as it provides the services that are required, it will be left alone. That is the deal. Karthikeya Rishi says Dalai Lama and his brother's links with the CIA. I'm not aware of it, sir. I'm not aware. His brother did write a book about the noodle maker of Kalimpong or something, right? Let's see. What is the book called? How did the name come to my mind? Noodle maker of Kalimpong. The noodle maker of Kalimpong. The untold story of my struggle for Tibet. And who wrote the book? Authors Gyalo Thondup and Thurston, and so on. So, who is Gyalo Thondup? The second oldest brother of the 40th Dalai Lama, closest advisor, based in India. So that's what I can tell you. That's as much as I know. I am not aware of any links with the CIA, so can't comment beyond that. Devil X537, thank you very much, sir. First of all, thank you so much. Big fan, thank you. India shows huge progress on paper, but the average person's life doesn't seem to improve much. You are correct. Also, most politicians' kids live abroad. You are again correct. Why is there such a gap between real life and reported progress? So the reported progress is based on metrics. GDP. What's the growth rate quarter upon quarter? GDP growth rate. As long as it's around 6.5, whatever, well, these are numbers. These are actually calculated numbers. So these numbers are real. The reported progress is along certain metrics. How many kilometers of highway did we build per day in the last quarter? So those are real numbers. That's also real progress. How many kilometers of railway lines did we lay down per day in the last quarter, whatever the number is? And these numbers are very encouraging. How many villages electrified in so and so year? How many villages got gas connections, got water connections, and blah blah blah, all that stuff. How many kilometers of border roads are being built per day per the last quarter, and so on. So all these metrics are real metrics, real progress. But the question you are asking is very, very appropriate, because do any of these metrics actually in a real way impact the quality of life of the average person in India? So we have to ask ourselves, what are the factors that impact the quality of life? Sure, access to running water, fantastic, sure. Once you get that, you have a certain quality of life. After that, what happens? So electricity, you get it once, good, it stays with you. Water, you get it, stays with you. Toilet connection, whatever that means, and so on. Better highways, better railways, it's all good. But what actually impacts the quality of life is this. Access to bank accounts, again, lots of people did not have that, and so on. But quality of life. What is the kind of future your children are going to have? Do they get good education? Or do they get a rotten education? If you need a job, are you going to have to face reservations? Right? If you need to interface with the government, are you going to have to allegedly pay bribes? If you want to start a business, are you going to allegedly have to pay bribes? Are you going to have to pay bribes like it is alleged at every step of the way for every piece of permission that you need? And then will you have to apparently allegedly pay bribes on an ongoing basis? If you are a street vendor, do you allegedly have to pay hafta? Even if you pay all these things and do all of this stuff, do you get good roads, or do you get roads with potholes that are rebuilt every year so that the cash flow keeps going? Can you breathe clean air? Are the cities, towns, villages livable? Do the municipal corporations even care? So the metrics that are reported, they don't affect the life of people. They overall make the country better slowly, gradually. But what they call achhe din is a whole different set of parameters. And there's no change there. Right? So the average person's life doesn't improve much because of that. I would say that, look, from 2014 till now, I would say there has been definitely a qualitative improvement to some extent in the life of the average Indian because of all the steps that have been taken. You can't deny that. But what people aspired for, none of that has happened. Right? End to the alleged corruption, tremendous ease of doing business, better education system, better living standards, better roads in cities, less pollution. Many of these things haven't happened, and that's the issue. So yeah, it's because of the way the system is structured. It is alleged that the entire system runs on corruption. And I've said so many times that what India needs desperately is a war on corruption. So, if you were to ask me one factor that is the reason for this huge gap between real life and the progress that's actually happening, I would say it's the alleged corruption that permeates all branches, many branches allegedly of the system. Let's call it. Yeah. Uchiha Whitey says, a couple of months back, the Chinese made allegations that Starlink can detect fifth generation jets and warned Musk not to beam it on China. What are my thoughts? I'm sure it can do much more than that. I'm sure it can do much more than that. Starlink is this network of thousands of satellites that are in orbit, low Earth satellites. Is their only purpose to beam internet? I'm sure they have all kinds of other sensors and equipment that allows the US to monitor what's happening on the ground on the planet in real time, wherever required. That's why Elon Musk and Starlink are so important to the US, right? So I am pretty sure that these satellites have way more capabilities than what is being told to us. First of all, Starlink itself is a dangerous thing for the sovereignty of any nation that is not America. Hugely dangerous, hugely problematic. And secondly, these satellites will have all kinds of sensors and equipments that will allow the United States to keep a very close watch in real time on what's happening across the world. So if the Chinese have made these allegations, I'm not surprised at all, and I completely agree with them. So maybe they have sensors that can detect fifth generation fighter planes. That's also one of the possibilities. Rachit Shrivastava says, my friend's dad worked in Japan's Intel. His team reported to the US embassy. He questioned it, lost his job. Is CIRO just a CIA extension? Let me see what is CIRO. Okay. CIRO Japan. Before I answer the question, yeah. Cabinet Intelligence and Research Office is what Wikipedia says. Also known as NICHO, is the National Civilian Intelligence Agency under the Japanese Cabinet Secretariat, tasked with advancing national security, blah, etc. Okay. And the cabinet. So if you look at the Wikipedia page, I am sure it will not mention the US at all. But Japan is a country under US occupation, and everything in Japan, everything of any importance is reported to the US, and it's controlled by the US. So your friend's dad worked in Japan's Intel in CIRO. His team reported to the US embassy. He questioned it and lost his job. Absolutely no surprise whatsoever. Japan is an occupied nation. And the Americans want to ensure that Japan never ever rises again the way it rose in the past. Very dangerous. Very dangerous. So you're going to keep an eye on all the people of Japan and what they're doing. Nationalistic sentiments need to be crushed. So yeah, is CIRO a CIA extension? Most likely it is. Yes. 6P70 Delta says, is KZ in a tug of war between China and Russia? Why no map nowadays? KZ, is it Kyrgyzstan or is it Kazakhstan? Why no map nowadays? Which no map? Let me see the map. Does Kazakhstan no longer exist on the map? Let's see together. In case you're talking about Kazakhstan, I'm sure Kyrgyzstan is not that important. It's a much smaller nation. So Kazakhstan map is here. Why no map nowadays? Kyrgyzstan's map is here. Kazakhstan is here. North of Kyrgyzstan, you have Kazakhstan, very large nation. Is it in a tug of war between China and Russia? There's going to be some tug of war. Because China is a nation with the world's second largest economy, and they want to project power way beyond where they can today. They are very ambitious, and Kazakhstan and all the Central Asian republics have traditionally been part of Russia's sphere of influence. So there's going to be a tug of war. in all these nations between Russia and China for sure. I'm not sure what you're asking about the no map, but yeah. Godliness says India's Prime Minister happily announced that 9 British universities will open their campus in India for higher learning. Certainly, we want our children to be pro Anglo-Saxon and forget about the Gurukul Vyavastha. So this is how we become Vishwaguru, I suppose, by having other universities open their centers in India. Look, I am not opposed to British universities or American universities or Australian universities or Chinese universities or Japanese universities, whoever, Russian, whatever, French, German. I am not opposed to any of these universities opening campuses in India. My question is, what will they be teaching? What courses will they be offering? I want them to teach only STEM. Science, technology, education, and what medicine is it? Medicine. I want them to teach only science, and technology. I don't want any of the nonsensical gender nonsense and women's studies and social sciences to come into India. I don't want them to teach any of that nonsense. So what's the deal? Are they going to be able to decide whatever they want to teach? Or will we impose preconditions that these are the subjects you can teach and these are the subjects you're not allowed to teach? In case we are giving them a carte blanche to do whatever you want, then we are digging our own grave. And India is a nation with a severe inferiority complex. So I think many of our, I don't know, government officials believe this is a fantastic thing for India. We will have better English language education now. I think it's terrible. I think we should invest in our own education system. Anyhow, Varun says, is petrocurrency the number one invention by the US? They used it to hire talent, print free money of unimaginable quantities, and fund their R&D infrastructure. Is this not a scam? US aid-like funds, are they still coming to India? I think US aid funds are not coming to India, but the US has so many other US aid alternatives, like the National Endowment for Democracy and so many other NGOs and whatnot, through which so many of these NGOs on US or on Indian territory, through which funds can be funneled into India. So the funding for whatever American projects exist in India has not stopped at all. Okay. Is petrocurrency the number one invention by the US? There are so many number one inventions by the US. Petrocurrency is one of those. Yeah. Today, the dollar is no longer a petrodollar. It's a completely free floating fiat currency with no link to anything, not gold, not petroleum, not anything at all. And yeah, because they can print free money, they can print as much as they want. And so that's why they are able to, use it to hire talent and fund whatever R&D they're doing. Another fantastic invention, let's discuss this, is the H-1B visa and the green card thing. Let me explain what I mean by that. So if you are a person from, let's say, a first world country, then your visa processing times, green card times are very, very quick. Depends on where you're born. If you're born in, let's say, Europe, then you get a different amount of, the time to process your visa, it takes you to process your US visa is very short. And even if you are in line for green cards, you will be given a green card way ahead of Indians. So they make it very fast for Europeans and people from first world countries. But when it comes to Indians, if an Indian is applying for a green card, it will take them years, maybe decades to get a green card. Forget about citizenship, even a green card, which is permanent residency. And the H-1B visa program itself is a thing that is like a sword hanging over your neck all the time. So what they do is this: they have Indians coming into the US for studies. Indians typically pay 50 lakhs or something for the studies, for a master's degree or something, typically, to the US. So first of all this money comes in. Then the Indians who acquire a master's degree or whatever in the US, they want to stay on because they want to escape the horrors of India, the third worldness of India, the horrible living standards and the alleged corruption and the reservations and all that. They want to escape that. So the Indians who get a degree, they are desperate to get a job now in the US. Okay. So the next step is to search for a job. So you get a job, let's say, and your employer will sponsor your visa, H-1B visa. And the visa has to be renewed every 3 years or whatever it is. So there is always a sword hanging over your neck. And after a while, you become eligible for applying for a green card. And that process takes 10-15 years. So Indians who are going through this process will work super hard will work super hard. They'll work double the intensity of an American, so that there is no blemish on their record until they get a green card. So the Americans, they get all this free talent, very cheap talent, very hardworking talent, just by extending the green card times and visa times and keeping the sword hanging over the neck of Indians. So you see, when you are developing new technologies and all, you need long term focus on things that may or may not work. And for that, Indians are best, because there is a sword hanging over the neck, and they'll just keep on working. So you don't need to hire Americans for that. You have Indians do that. It's another fantastic scam the Americans have invented. So yeah. Amisha says Muttaki visited Deoband. What are your thoughts? So Deoband, this Darul Ulum, whatever that institution is, it is the alma mater of the Taliban. The Taliban movement is a Deobandi movement. So makes sense, and possibly Mr. Muttaqi would have studied there. I'm not sure. Did Mr. Muttaqi study there? Let's find out. Let's Google that. Even if he did not study there, that institution is the alma mater of the Taliban. Did Muttaqi, what's his name? Muttaqi study at Deoband? Did he? Seminary history, studied and taught. Okay, I'm not sure who was the first Maulana Muttaqi. Did Maulana? No, Maulavi Muttaqi studied at Deoband. I'm not sure if he studied there. Yeah, that's okay. But the Taliban movement is a Deobandi movement. So it's like visiting your birthplace kind of thing. That's what it meant for Muttaqi. And yeah, it has given India some kind of geopolitical advantage for once, the existence of this Darul Ulum seminary in Deoband. All right, that's okay. Chat DSP says the current US-China trade war resumption, is it tactical for the is it a tactical thing for the upcoming Apex summit? How can India leverage the situation to cut a deal with the US, or is the new containment strategy too strong? India can't leverage any of this to cut a deal with the US. The deal the US wants is a maximalist deal. The US gets everything, India gets nothing. That's what the US wants. This situation cannot be leveraged by India to cut some kind of deal with the US. The US is very clear what kind of deal they want, and we are not willing to give it because that is vassalhood. Is this US-China trade war resumption, is it tactical for upcoming Apex summit? It's not tactical, it's strategic. The Chinese have imposed restrictions on the exports of rare earth minerals, which are critical for the US and the US military. And the US is responding to that by imposing more tariffs and whatnot. So it's not a tactical thing, it's a strategic thing. The Chinese are leveraging whatever advantages they have. It probably has nothing to do with the Apex summit. Rohan Soneja says, I have interacted a lot with both Ivy League graduates and Scandinavian PhDs. Ivy League guys are dumb people, but Nordic PhDs are excellent. What's my take? I haven't interacted with Nordic PhDs, so I can't say. Look, what do I know of Scandinavian PhDs? I know the Niels Bohr Institute in Copenhagen, which, as far as I know, has a very high reputation and in very high standards. It was established by Niels Bohr himself. Beyond that, what other PhDs come out of Scandinavia, I'm not sure. Ivy League graduates, are they dumb? I'm not sure if all of them are dumb. Many of them will be dumb. Yeah. If you are an Ivy League product, it means either you have paid a tremendous amount of money, your daddy or your mommy paid a tremendous amount of money to put you through that, or otherwise maybe you are really smart. But once again, it depends on the field. If you are an Ivy League PhD from the field of physics, well, I will take that person seriously. But if you're an Ivy League PhD from the field of some social science or something, I will I'm pretty sure they're going to be dumb, because you can't be dumb and get a physics PhD from an Ivy League university, right? Even if your mom or dad paid big money for that, you can't get a PhD. So it depends. It depends. So if it's a physics PhD, I will take them more seriously. If it's a math PhD, I'll take them more seriously. If it's from the scientific fields, I'll take them more seriously. If it's from those fake subjects like home science and women's studies and sociology and whatever else, I I will be like, I will not be surprised if they're dumb. Fast Snail says Qatar is building Air Force station in Idaho. Will it irk Israel? No, it won't irk Israel. Israel won't care about it. Israel won't be concerned whatsoever. Israel is fine. They all understand what's happening. It's all good. Okay. B. Mandov says China builds a lot of infrastructure in Tibet. Will it get freedom ever? Not for the foreseeable future. Tibet is not getting any freedom for the foreseeable future. Sadly, it is what it is. Abhijit Singh says Wagner Group PSYOP, pagers explosion by Mossad, India's Akash system. What tactical and technological wonders are in store next for us to observe? Well, eventually they will reveal what the UFOs are. The UFOs that fly across the US, appear over cities and whatnot. Are they drones? Are they UFOs? What are those things? UAPs, whatever they call. I think that's the next technological wonder for us to understand. Someday perhaps they will reveal what it is. It's probably very high, highly advanced technology of some kind. So maybe that's what is the wonder which will come next for us to observe. Okay. Unknown user says, I see us US led world is full of misery. In a hypothetical scenario, if India becomes a global power, how should it respond to harms caused by the US, revenge against the country, its leader, or its people? If India hypothetically someday becomes a global power, the most powerful nation, we should not take revenge on anybody. If we are in a position where we are the leader of the world, then we should use it to make the world a better place, as long as that doesn't cost us too much money and doesn't harm us. Right? Don't sacrifice your interest for the rest of the world, but as long as it doesn't hurt your interest or harm them in any way, make the world a better place. That's our culture. How should we respond to harms caused by no revenge? I am not a person who is vindictive. I am not someone who would seek revenge. And hopefully whoever the Indian leader is in this hypothetical scenario, he or she will also not seek revenge. Right? Just make the world a better place in whatever way is possible, in such a way that it doesn't hurt our interests or cost us a lot. I mean, doing social service can cost you a lot, right? So obviously, nation civilization comes first, but beyond that, if as far as possible, make the world a better place. No revenge and all that. Anonymous scientist says, will China-Pakistan relations remain stable in the near future, because Pakistan is completely in the hands of the US now? China-India will come close. China-Pakistan relations will remain stable, but not the relationship they had when they were iron brothers. That won't be there. China will not get access to whatever they were able to access in Pakistan before 2022. China is out now. The US is the boss in Pakistan. But relations will remain stable. China is a pragmatic nation. China doesn't do boohoo because you turn your back on us. Yeah? But China is a pragmatic nation. It's not an emotional nation. So the relationship will remain stable. China, India, will these two nations come close? The Americans are forcing India and China to become closer. So there will be some kind of understanding, some kind of cooperation, some kind of de-escalation to some extent between India and China. But I'm not optimistic for India and China resolving all their issues. So those issues will remain, but beyond that, for at least the next certain period of time, whatever years, India and China will lower the tensions and work together in a pragmatic way, cooperate in wherever it's possible, in whichever way is potentially available to us. That's what will happen. Heer Kumar Patel, thank you very much, sir. Nobody, good name. Thank you very much, sir. Shubrat Shukla says, in British rule, it was said Labour Party favoured India and Conservative Party tortured us. 70 years later, the same storyline, Democrats versus the Republican in US. Does deep state behave the same way as British Crown? The British, the deep state owns the British Crown. And the Republicans versus Democrat thing, it is entirely American. It is not something that they've copied from the British, as far as I can understand. It is all to give the people the illusion of having a democracy. See, we are giving you two choices: Republicans versus Democrats. You choose what you want. See, it's a democracy. You get to vote, right? Even though nothing changes. And the deep state is what owns everything. The deep state owns the United States. They also own the British Crown and whatever else. So does deep state behave the same way as the British? Well, they are an imperial power, the deep state. Right? The British Crown was an imperial power, wasn't it? The British Empire. The sun never set over the British Empire. Well, today the sun never sets over the American Empire. The American Empire has possessions, explicit, implicit possessions all across the world. It has vassalized more than half the world's countries, significantly more than half the world's countries. These are all American possessions. The sun never sets there. It occupies various countries like Japan, like South Korea, like Germany, like Italy, and so on, in various ways. Japan and South Korea is very explicit. Germany is slightly less explicit. Italy even less explicit, and there are other countries as well. So it behaves in the way any empire behaves, and there is no surprise there. 6P70 Delta says, it is said logistics win wars. US and former USSR operated tremendously large transport aircrafts in large numbers. Is India in bad shape since most of its fleet is aging and near the end of its lifetime? Are we sleeping? We are sleeping. Whatever transport aircraft, the tremendously large ones we have, are of foreign origin. Russian origin, some of those, and American origin. So we need US help and generosity and benevolence to get the spare parts and all that for those American fighter planes, the Hercules and whatnot we have, right? We have been sleeping. We are still sleeping. Why aren't we developing our own transport aircraft? Why aren't we doing any of these things? A project doesn't even exist to develop something in the next 20 years, 30 years. Nothing. We are sleeping. We are not a serious nation to a very large extent. Yeah. We need transport aircraft that we control, that we own, that we don't have to rely on other nations for spare parts and so on for. Right? We simply haven't bothered with these things. Seriously, not serious. We are a nation of slogans. Superpower, Vishwaguru. Are we doing what it takes? No, we're not. Nobody says, what if USA bombed by Russia? Then USA will bomb Russia. Ritvik says, are not Afghanistan and Iran pro-India and anti-Pak? What type of government does Iran have? Does the president have power, or Ayatollah Khamenei is the true leader? What type of government does Iran have? It has a theocratic government. It has a president and so on, and a majlis. But the president he's like the fourth most powerful person or something in the country. The real power lies in the hands of the supreme leader, Shri Ayatollah Khamenei, right? The poet. Yeah, he's a poet. He used to be a poet. I'm sure he still is a poet at heart. You can still see some of his poetry on Twitter. Okay, so that's what Iran is. That's the kind of government they have. They have a theocratic government. Okay, and Afghanistan is a very similar government. They also have a theocratic government, an Islamic government. Iran is Shia, Afghanistan is Sunni, but okay. And look, they are not anti-Pak. They just don't want Pakistan there. Pakistan is a nuisance. Ideally, both would like to be friends with Pakistan because Pakistan is an Islamic country, but Pakistan is a nuisance. Pakistan is a terrorist nation, and Pakistan is a puppet of foreign powers. And it's always been used by foreign powers to destabilize these two countries. So neither Afghanistan nor Iran are in any way whatsoever happy that they have Pakistan as a neighbor. Both would prefer to have India as a neighbor, as used to be in the past. So because of circumstances, because of the cruelty of the universe, because they have Pakistan as a neighbor. Both of them obviously are anti-Pakistan. If someone keeps on poking you and stabbing you, you're gonna be anti them, right? So both are, because of that, anti-Pakistan and pro-India. James says Europe boasts superior weather, refinement, and architecture. India, lamentable state, rather justifies its place in the so-called third world, or dare say. Well, it depends on what your idea of superior weather is. Some people like warm weather. I mean, most Americans want to retire in Florida, which is a place with warm weather and humid weather. It's kind of like Bombay or Chennai, Mumbai or Chennai, right? Florida. Not as warm, but I can show you plenty of places in India which have weather that's similar to Miami. Miami, for example. So why do Americans not consider the weather of New York or Boston or Maryland or Salt Lake City to be nice? Why do they want to migrate to Miami or Florida? Why is that? Yeah. So it depends. I'm not sure. So superior weather for one person will be terrible weather for another person. So Europe boasts superior weather. Well, I've been to Europe. Some of the weather is terrible. Go to England. The weather is ghastly. Ghastly. 4 seasons in one day. What's that? Rains. It's gloomy. Terrible. You call that superior? Come on. What you smoking, bruh? And what's refinement? You eat rice with a fork. You put it on the back of the fork and then you eat it. Thusly. You call that refinement. I call that idiocy. Architecture. We've got superior architecture. Okay, today's Indian architecture, post 1947 Indian architecture is lamentable. No question about that. But our civilizational architecture is superior to yours. Lamentable state rather justifies its place. See, right now, India deservedly is a third world country, no question. But we're going to rise again. We're going to have better leaders in the future. Okay? No one can keep us down. Our historical position was always at the top, and we're going to get back there whenever it happens. I dare say. Always great to talk to you, Mr. James. Always great to have your questions and comments. Rishi Verma says, what's your biggest praise and criticism of India on the global stage, given the current state of geopolitics? My biggest praise and biggest criticism of India. Biggest praise is that we are standing up to the bullies. We are not giving up our sovereignty. It is commendable. It's very high risk. It's especially high risk for the leader, the prime minister. He's taking a personal risk. That is commendable. Right? It's so easy to cave in and to buckle to the superpowers' demands. It's so easy to do that. But the prime minister has chosen not to do that. He has chosen to take the difficult decision of keeping India sovereign and not caving into American maximalist demands. I cannot praise that enough. I have the highest praise for that. Highest praise. What's my criticism of India on the global stage? Biggest criticism of India on the global stage. But overall, our diplomacy is good. One of the criticisms I would give is that we don't engage enough with the third world, with the global south. Okay, we should have more robust, more rigorous engagement with the African nations, with Southeast Asian nations, in a meaningful way. That's one. Apart from that, India is not taking the actions that we need to take to make India more powerful in the future internally, which is the hard decisions, the hard reforms. We're not doing that. Ease of doing business, nothing changes. Taxation system, extremely overcomplicated, right? The alleged corruption, all of these things matter geopolitically also. The alleged corruption, the rotten system, various rotten institutions, the horrific education system, which will perpetually keep India mediocre. So that's my biggest criticism. None of these are difficult things, but the current government doesn't seem to have the gumption to take on these issues. And another big criticism, huge criticism of mine is this. Well, two. Why don't we have a more powerful navy? We have the position that is gifted by the gods, a geographic position. We dominate the Indian Ocean region, but our navy, it's like a glorified coast guard, most of it. We should have at least 50 submarines. We should have distributed lethality with at least 300 vessels that are capable of carrying missiles. None of this is being done. Right? That's one of the big criticisms. And what else do I have? I'm sure there was something on my mind, but it seems to have slipped out. Right? What other criticism do I have? I'm sure something or the other will come up later on. Army, Air Force, all of that needs to be taken care of, and so on. Yeah, okay. AVM says most of internet data is from the West. How can India achieve technological sovereignty after building its own LLM, since it doesn't have quality training data? For that, first of all, we need to have Indian social media platforms, which will generate Indian data, not Western data. You see, it's all step by step. You have to build one thing on top of another. Why do the Chinese have their own data? Because they have their own social media platforms. Huge, high quality social media platforms. Their whole entire population is on that. We don't have that. Secondly, our education institutions produce very mediocre research. If you train your LLMs on that, your LLMs will have an IQ of 82. Right? That's another issue. And what else? We can train our LLMs on our own literature, which is enormous. We have an enormous classical literature. We can train that the LLMs on that. So, we will have to resolve these issues by building our own platforms, network things, and all that. But we want to take shortcuts. Then what's the point of doing anything at all if you want to take all these shortcuts? Right? Yeah, technological sovereignty, very important. P. Call says, do you think that historic events like Bolshevik Revolution or Chinese or Russian Revolution or Holocaust affect current geopolitics, or one country's agenda or future goals are always based on current interests? No, these historic events do affect current geopolitics. Absolutely, they do. The Bolshevik Revolution left behind a big legacy, which gave rise to the USSR, and the dissolution of the USSR gave rise to present-day Russia. And some of the territories Russia lost as a consequence of the breakup of the USSR are Russian territories, and maybe Russia wants them back, and maybe Russia, So the Bolshevik Revolution does affect current geopolitics. The Holocaust very much plays a role even today in current geopolitics, right? But what you can say, what you can't say, what nations are considered good, what nations are considered to be permanently evil. The nations that were on the losing side in the Second World War are permanently considered to be evil and are under permanent geopolitical, under permanent military occupation by the winning power, which was the US, right? So today's geopolitics is indeed affected by past events. And for example, the Second World War was a direct consequence of World War One. Germany was humiliated badly at the end of World War One, which is what gave rise to World War Two. So past history was the causative factor of a future war, right? So everything is based on past, present, future. Everything intertwines. So a country's agenda and goals, they are based on current interests as well as historical events and aspirations that are tied to historical events. Mahidhar KVS says, do you support a CCP-style single-party rule in India? I think CCP's state-controlled, market-driven economy worked very well in India. Why isn't India adopting such a system? It would improve our economy. See, why isn't India adopting such a system? Because the entire structure of the system is such that it will not allow this to happen. We have this weak federal system in the country where the states have a lot of power of their own, and the central government can't interfere there in various things which are state matters, state affairs, right? Law and order is a state subject. That's what you will hear a lot of the time, which means the central government can't do a thing about the law and order situation in a state until it goes so bad that you have to impose president's rule. And even if you impose president's rule in a state, they can go to the Supreme Court and have it overturned. So you see, the system is such that it is designed to keep India weak and decentralized. If someone tries to implement a CCP style system in India, a central command structure, all the states will rise up in protest. They won't allow this to happen. You will need a very powerful leader to impose this on the country. Do I support such a party rule in India, single party rule? I do, as long as the single party is pro India and not evil, benevolent to the people and to the country, and is capable. Essentially, we are talking about a benevolent dictatorship, which essentially means a monarchy or imperial rule, like we had in the past so many times. That's exactly what it is. CCP style single party rule is an imperial system, the old Chinese imperial system. That's what it is. So the Indian equivalent of that would be going back to the times of Chandragupta Maurya or Ashok or Kanishka or the various Gupta emperors or the Cholas or the Maratha Empire. That's what it means. Do I support that? It will be way more beneficial to India than the system that we have today. Yeah. But it won't be allowed to happen. Why will it not be allowed to happen? Because all the politicians in India who are in whatever positions of power, they have come to these positions of power through the current system. Why will they change the system that brought them to power? They will oppose any attempt to change it for their own personal interests, not the nation's interest. Ashutosh Soni says, what does the US deep state gain from ongoing and future conflicts like Israel, Iran, Ukraine, Russia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, Taiwan? By creating chaos across the world, you gain more control. And when two nations are fighting, Afghanistan, Pakistan, if your guy is Pakistan, you want Pakistan to win. Then you have more power projection capabilities. If Pakistan can defeat Afghanistan and take over Afghanistan, then the US can get 20 air bases in Afghanistan if they want. So that is benefit for the US, for the deep state. Israel, Iran. If Israel defeats Iran and there's a regime change in Iran, then the Americans once again can take over Tehran and Iran and take all the oil from Iran. Is it not great? Huge benefit. China, Taiwan. Well, as long as China is not able to invade Taiwan and occupy Taiwan, it's a win for the US, because Taiwan cuts, it's part of the first island chain that cuts, which is a huge problem for the Chinese Navy. And it's always this thing that stares China in the face, that you're so weak, so powerless, that you can't take an island that's in your backyard. And it allows the US to project power across various parts of China from Taiwan. These are all big benefits, right? Shreyas Mitra says, thank you for all the knowledge. I learned a lot by watching your shows. Thank you. I wish I had teachers like you in school. I wish I had better teachers in school, seriously. Anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is, knowledge has to be made interesting. It can't be this boring, dull, droning BS that you get in textbooks. It has to make sense. You have to understand causality, cause and effect. All of that has to be explained. Otherwise, knowledge is not knowledge. It's just boredom. So anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. 6P70 Delta said, I meant you open maps very rarely nowadays. Okay, well, I just did that for your question, right? Okay, got it. Ajay Sharma says, question 2. US doesn't care, yet spreads its culture as Europe declines. Could the US deep state, driven by old EU history, be behind this revenge? Which revenge? You mean making Europe decline? US deep state driven by old European history. US doesn't care, yet spreads its culture as Europe declines. What is American culture? American culture used to be the old European culture anyway, but yeah, they've developed their own. Okay. Do you mean that LGBTQ thing and all that, which they're spreading these days? Yeah, that is American culture. Degeneracy. And whatever I'm not saying LGBTQ is degeneracy. I'm saying everything else is degeneracy. And also LGBTQ. So US culture is degeneracy on one hand, and another thing is LGBTQ, and the other thing is freedom, human rights, all those slogans, which are hollow slogans. So is America spreading its culture? I'm not sure it's spreading its culture. It's probably spreading propaganda through Hollywood and whatnot. Now the question is, could the US deep state driven by old European history be behind this revenge? I'm not sure what you're asking, sir. What are you asking? Which revenge? That Europe is declining? Of course, the US deep state is behind that. The US is behind that. Why is Europe declining? Its decline is being engineered using Brussels as the tool of engineering, and Brussels is controlled entirely by the US from Washington. So the decline of Europe is being engineered by the United States. Of course it is. Is it revenge? I don't think it's about revenge of any kind. It's nothing to do with revenge. It's about creating the right kind of world that you envision for yourself. And in this worldview, Europe, it should not matter a lot. So it's not any form of revenge or whatever. It's just that they are reshaping the world, the kind of they're trying to create a different kind of world for themselves. And this has nothing to do with old EU history. Ritvik says, imagine we take Gilgit-Baltistan someday, maybe after 30, 40 years, then what will happen to the locals of POK? I know they don't like India, but they are radical. That's an open question. That's an open question. What will happen? We will eventually take back these territories. But what about the people? The people who are there currently local there. They don't like India. They have no love for India. They have no love for Indian culture, which used to be the culture of their ancestors, but they don't have any love for that. They have significant hatred for that. What do we do about them? I think that's a question that is an open question. I don't have an answer to the question. Okay. 6P70 Delta says, why US universities are great, but schools are mostly crap? Most American universities are also becoming crap today. I mean, if you have crap schools, they're going to send crap students to the US universities. And the kind of professors you have in US universities, especially in the humanities, they further mess up students' minds. So even US universities aren't that great anymore today, by the way. It's only the few Ivy League universities that still have some kind of standards. But when it comes to the STEM subjects, science and technology subjects, they still have high standards, right? So if you are studying in a US university, even not in the top 100 in the US, maybe let's say it's ranked 120 in the US, even then you will get a far better science education than you will get in India, right? So they have maintained the standards in science and technology, but in other subjects, they are full of propaganda and ideology, right? So it is what it is. So this great takeover of the US education system, it started in the 1950s and 60s, when the leftists started slowly, gradually, quietly, silently taking over everything. And now it's become very open. So that's mainly in the fields of the humanities and so on. And on US campuses, you can't express certain opinions and so on. That's become the norm everywhere, essentially. So that is the situation right now. Mr. Saxena says, when did the deep state's influence truly begin? I would say after the end of the Second World War. After the Bretton Woods Agreement, 1944, when the US dollar was accepted as the world's global reserve currency. So around that time, the deep state's influence becomes very powerful. Did the deep state exist before that? Probably it did, but it was not globally powerful until that time. So maybe it existed, maybe the deep state had its genesis in the beginning of the 20th century, maybe before that. But once again, what is the deep state? We don't quite know. Who are the people who make up the deep state? We don't quite know. They own the Federal Reserve. So maybe when the Federal Reserve formed, that's when the deep state's influence begins. So there are different ways of looking at it. But if you want a clear date, it's around 1944 or 1945. And eventually they become so powerful that even a US president is bumped off. 1963. Harjab says, please listen to Amerimaka. Mary Makkah by Thievery Corporation. Okay, I don't know what that is, but I'll check it out. Thank you. James says a single shelf of a good European library was worth the whole native literature of India and Arabia. Lord Macaulay. Well, you are indeed correctly quoting Lord Macaulay. Lord Macaulay expressed this opinion. He made this assertion. A single shelf of a good European library is worth more than the entire native literature of India and Arabia. I'm not sure why he put India and Arabia together because there's no comparison. And today, most Indians believe this. So you know, I would congratulate you, James, that your Lord Macaulay has been indeed so successful that today many Indians believe this to be true. Yeah, yeah, it is what it is. What it is. This has been successful. This propaganda. Ritvik says the US has surrounded India by regime changes all around. Why can't they change regime in their enemies like Iran, North Korea? Can the US regime change Kim Jong Un and Ayatollah Khamenei? Can the US make North Korea public break statues of Kim Il sung? See, the US can do this in different ways. Wherever you have so called democratic systems, they can do a regime change via the color revolution methodology. So you take the help of the local army, you pay them whatever they want, and then you create a fake student revolution, and then at the last moment the army takes over. And they said that the students have won. And then, yeah, so that's one way of doing it. That can only be done where you have a impoverished third world nation with no self-respect and a corrupt nation, where the army is available for purchase. Right? That's what you can do there. And various politicians can easily come into your pockets. So that's the situation in this subcontinent, in every country in the subcontinent. Not in India. In India, the army is not for sale. That we can tell for sure. Other elements, politicians of various parties, potentially for sale, possibly, hypothetically, allegedly, potentially. Some, maybe, perhaps. Okay, and NGOs are a great means of doing it. So wherever you have democratic systems or quasi-democratic, fake, somewhat democratic systems, you can use the color revolution methodology. So Bangladesh is very much like Pakistan. That's why they were able to do a regime change like they did in Pakistan in 2022. Similarly, they did something in Bangladesh in 2024, which is something I had predicted in a video 9 months before that. In Nepal, once again, they've done something similar. So Nepal again was kind of a democracy, right? That's why they were able to do this. They would like to do that in India as well. Now, Iran is not a democracy. They have elections and stuff, but the president of Iran is just the fourth most powerful person in the country. So it's not really a democracy. North Korea is a clear dictatorship. There, the US can't do that because you can't have NGOs there. Won't be allowed. You can't buy politicians there. Those politicians will be hanged or shot. So they can't do these things there. You see the benefits of not having a democracy? You won't have people available for sale. And in these countries, Iran and North Korea, the army is not for sale once again. So the way the US can change regime there is by launching an actual invasion. Yeah, that's how it goes. So different kinds of nations, different tactics and strategies. Chat DSP says, I sometimes wish I had not found you. With so much happening in your teachings that develop my critical thinking, I now see reality and it's scary. Awaiting next books and volumes. Love you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate what you're saying. I really appreciate that. One sometimes wishes that you sometimes wish that you do not know what you know. You sometimes, feel nostalgic about the time when you were a child, when you were like 9, 10 years old, when you thought you understood the world and you thought the world was so beautiful and so pretty, flowers and butterflies and stuff. Eventually, when you grow up, when you actually grow up, then you realize what the world is really like. Would I change things? Would I want to go back to the time when I was 9 years old and I understood nothing about the world? Probably not. It was a beautiful time of life, of course. But it's always good to know what's happening. I know it's scary. It's so dirty. But it's the way the world has always been. The world has always been like this. Nasty, cutthroat, backstabbing. Dirty politics, all of that. It's always been like that. It's been like that 5,000 years ago also. There's always been evil, forces of good, forces that are gray, shades of gray. It's always been like this. So, yeah, once you realize the way things are, you kind of feel like you've lost your innocence, and you wish you had not learned these things. It is what it is. Yeah, next books, volumes coming out will keep coming out. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Ankita ji says, thank you so much for your time and effort. Really inspiring. Thank you so much, ma'am. I really appreciate the support of everybody, including you, ma'am. I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Ankur Saraf, thank you so much, sir. Really appreciate that. Gagan Bhatt says the US just slapped 100% tariffs on China, yet he is under immense pressure to set ties right with India. What leverage does India have against the US that Trump could not do much to India, though Modi hurt his ego? India has no leverage on the US. What leverage does India have? Not much. Not much. The US slapped tariffs on China because the Chinese have imposed massive export restrictions on various rare earth elements, magnets, and so on, which are critical to the US defense, let's say, war industry. Now they call it war, right? No longer defense. These elements are critical to the US military and the manufacturing of US weapons and stuff. So the Chinese have imposed export restrictions on those, and that's why the Americans have retaliated by imposing these 100% tariffs on China. But they can't do a thing about the Chinese export restrictions. So China has massive leverage over the US. What leverage does who is under immense pressure to set ties right with India? Trump. He's not under any immense pressure. I'm not sure how you have understood that he's under immense pressure to set ties right with India. I would say that Trump is under no pressure to set ties right with India. He's in no hurry to do that. India has, as far as I can see, not a lot of leverage. We have some leverage. We supply 40% of the the generic medicines that the US has, and our cyber coolies are the backbone of the US tech Fortune 500 companies and all that. But that's limited leverage. So I don't think India has a tremendous amount of leverage over the US. And Trump has indeed done a lot to hurt India, hasn't he? I mean, the 50% tariffs on India is already a lot. Secondly, Trump openly siding with Pakistan, isn't that a massive, massive blow to India? So, yeah, Trump is doing a lot to hurt India. SK is a new member. Thank you so much, sir, and welcome so much. Sir or ma'am, thank you so much and welcome. Ankur Saraf is also a new member. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. E. Rahul says, I read World System Analysis by Immanuel Wallerstein recently. It's very legit, despite it being Marxist. Could you please give in-depth analysis? For that to happen, I will have to study it myself. I still haven't done that. So, okay, I appreciate the book recommendation, first of all, and the suggestion to give an in-depth analysis. So, I'll put this in my list of books that I should read sometime in the future. And once I do that, I will definitely give an in-depth analysis. But it's not possible right now because I haven't read it, sir. Okay. 6P70 Delta says, your opinion on AIM. Can you have another podcast with him? AIM, Abhijit Aramitra, super sharp guy. I really like the guy. Great guy. Good friend of mine. Yeah, I would love to do another podcast with him whenever the opportunity arises, for sure. Yeah. I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but extremely sharp person and definitely pro-India, definitely not anti-national. So what else can you ask for? Can you expect you to agree? Can you expect to agree with everything someone says? Not necessarily. But I would love to do another podcast with him whenever the opportunity arises. Shashi Dhankar says, there's some chatter about Trump's health. Do you see him stepping back or being replaced? Would a replacement be better for India in any way? Okay. There's been some chatter about Trump's health. Trump is obviously like around 80-ish, right? What's his age? Let's quickly find out. Let's quickly Google it. Yes, Trump age. 79 years. He's 79 years old, which is like 80-ish, like I said. So that's a pretty advanced age. He's pretty elderly by any standards. And at that age, even if you have a good lifestyle, you're going to have some health issues or the other. So there's been all kinds of chatter. There is this makeup that is applied to the back of his hand at times. Sometimes he looks very tired. Sometimes he looks like he's got swollen ankles or something. So there is all this chatter about his health. Do I see him stepping back or being replaced? Well, if his health does deteriorate, it doesn't look like it's bad right now. From whatever I've seen of him in the latest appearances in public, he looks fine. He's still playing golf and stuff. He did some kind of a video with his granddaughter Kai, in which he's driving the golf cart and his granddaughter, is interviewing him. So he looks pretty okay there. But you never know, some health issue may crop up in the future. One hopes for the people of the US and for the nation that this doesn't happen. But if it does happen, as can happen, then it's possible that he may have to step back, depending on the nature of the health crisis. So if that happens, then there's a clear line of succession. If the president is no longer able to carry out his duties, then the vice president takes over as the president. It happens. So it could happen, potentially, possibly, in some time in the future, or it may not happen. Would a replacement be better for India in any way? No. Will make no difference. None whatsoever. Shashi ji. Okay, Shiva Rajput says 2.5 front war in Pakistan after accepting Israel a nation. So has Pakistan recognized Israel? Not sure. 2.5 front war in Pakistan. See, right now there's a 1.5 or one front war. Half front is Afghanistan border, which is not exactly a war right now, but it's skirmishes and military action. And the other 0.5 front is the terrorists within Pakistan. Some are controlled by the Pakistani government, some are controlled by the Pakistani military, some are anti-Pakistan, some want freedom, like Balochistan, some in Sindh also. So Pakistan is a mess. It's always been a mess. And they are trying to test the patience of the Taliban, so they are also facing some consequences of that. So that is the situation right now. I'm not sure I would call it a 2.5 front war, unless they get involved with India again, in which case it will be a disaster for Pakistan. So that's where we are right now. Okay. Chat DSP says, my two-year-old twin boys are innocent, joyful, playful. I hope it lasts as long as it is humanly possible. The nicest, most beautiful time for children who have good parents is the early years of life, when the world is so beautiful, where you're super innocent, you don't know anything about the nastiness of the world, and you get to play and you have no pressures, no burdens. Yeah, take care of your kids, and I wish them all the best, sir or ma'am. Thank you. Ajay Sharma says, question 3, more specific. One group suffers the most in European history. Now they are taking revenge in the form of deep state from EU just observation. Are you referring to our friends the Jews? The Jews have been persecuted tremendously in European history. No question about that. But I would not really agree. Okay, let me explain. I would not really agree that the Jews have been the one group that have suffered the most in European history. The truth is that the group that has suffered the most in European history are the Romani people. They have suffered far worse than the Jews, and their plight is deliberately suppressed and hidden. They still suffer from all kinds of prejudice in Europe. They are still regarded as second-class citizens in many countries in Europe. They are still stateless in many parts of Europe. And the Nazis persecuted them horribly, despite the Romani people being of the actual Aryan ancestry, not the Germans. The Germans are fake Aryans. The only Aryan people are the people of the subcontinent and Persia. So Indian subcontinent, including Afghanistan and Persia. These are the real Aryans. And the Gypsies or the Romani people are the original Aryans, because they are descendants of Indians. And yet they were persecuted by the Germans, by the Nazis. I would say the Romani have suffered way more than the Jews. But are you implying that Jews are taking revenge on Europe in form of the deep state? Well, if you say so, okay, sir. Observation. All right, sir. Harshai says, a podcast with Sandeep Balakrishna and Omendra Ratno on Dark Ages of India. I would love to do that in the future. See, right now I'm not really doing podcasts. The thing about podcasts is that now everybody has a podcast. Podcasting has become a cottage industry. Podcasts are like noise today. Everybody is doing dark history of this and dark truth of that, and secrets of this and secrets of that. My goodness, I'm so sick of this Indian podcasting industry. It provides no value whatsoever anymore to anybody. So right now I've stepped back from doing podcasts. It doesn't mean that I'll not do podcasts again, but only with selected guests that interest me. So I've done with Sandeep Balakrishnan in the past. He's a good friend of mine. I'd love to do it with him again, and I can certainly look into Mr. Omendra Ratnu, what he does. I do know him. I have met him in Jaipur multiple times, but I certainly can consider that as well. No question about it. So thank you for the recommendations. Thank you. Durgesh says, what is the worst case scenario if India doesn't develop in 25 years? Considering how bad our cities are, I don't think it will. Things can change. Things certainly can change. One should remain optimistic. The cities are terribly bad, right? It's not like they've gone backwards since 1914. No, they've not become worse since 1914. Probably they've become slightly-ish betterish since 2014. But they're still horrible. India cities. Look, Kabul has better roads than most Indian cities, allegedly. Countries with less GDP per capita than India do far better than India. Clearly, there is something rotten within the Indian system. And if that is not fixed, India will never develop. What's the worst case scenario? India never develops. India becomes, then eventually you will have a government that will vassalize India. And then you will have another 250 years of East India Company rule or the equivalent of that through some other country. So if India doesn't fix these issues, sooner or later you will have a government that will vassalize India. This government won't do it, but they're not fixing the issues, the core issues, the alleged corruption and the deep systemic reforms that are desperately needed in India. So eventually people will, at some point in time, vote for a different government, whoever that may be. Okay, I'm not saying it will be X or Y or Z. I'm saying whoever that may be, there's a possibility that this other government that may come in, whoever it is, may happily vassalize India. Then we are enslaved for another 250 years, maybe 1,000 years. That's the worst case scenario. And it's a scenario with a non-negligible probability, considering the lack of reforms in India. Okay, A. Rahul says, world system funnels wealth from periphery to core. Okay, sir. Okay, there's no question here, but okay, sir. Thank you so much for this observation. Rushi Joshi says, Namaste ji. When we speak about the deep state of the US and how they have continued throughout the centuries, should India have this in the future? So the US deep state, has it continued through the centuries? I'm not sure it's continued through the centuries. It probably originates sometime in the late 19th century or early 20th century, around that time. And they have remained hidden. And they have created this facade of democracy, which is enough to fool people. And that's how they rule the US, and through the US, they rule the world. Okay? Should India have this in the future? Well, depends. If it is a deep state that is non-evil, if it's a dharmic deep state, I would be very much in favor of that. But if it's an evil deep state, well, then we might as well accept the US deep state in that case. Did I just say they are evil? Oh my goodness. What did I say? Right, so that's the deal. Vamshi Kalim says, you are near 300 episodes. Do a 6 to 8 hour episode. I did one 8-hour episode, which ended up being an almost 9-hour episode. Would you like me to do that? Would you like me to make the 300th episode an 8-hour episode again? Let me know. If you want me to do an 8-hour episode for the 300th episode, if that's what everyone wants, I'll be happy to do it. I had no idea that I was capable of doing that, but I spoke for nearly 9 hours in that episode. At the end of the episode, I was wondering whether I'll be able to speak the next day, whether my throat will be ruined, but it turned out to be okay. I spoke very little the next day. It turned out to be okay. So I guess I have the vocal cords that can last 8-9 hours. So if you all want, I can do an 8-hour episode on number 300. Rahul Lakshmanan says, how about Ankit Shah's PC guest? Well, thank you for the recommendation. So thank you. All right. This brings us to the end of today's episode. No more super chats, so I will end it here. 2.5 hours gone. It was supposed to be 2 hour episode. So one second. Injured soccer player says, "Thank you for enlightening us. Do you foresee a Khalistani nation forming from within Canada?" I would love that to happen. If the Khalistanis want a nation, I would urge them to create a nation in Canada, a Khalistan in Canada. Where's the question gone? Here it is. Yeah, let them make in Canada. Do I foresee it happening? I think it's unlikely to happen. But I would support a Khalistan in Canada if that's what they want. Not in India, not anywhere in the subcontinent. They can have it in Canada if they like. But the Canadians have to give them the land for that. I don't really foresee this happening. The Khalistanis are a bunch of useful idiots who are being used against their own people, sadly. Shiva Rajput says, Hindi GP series for uneducated people like UP Bihar. What is the GP series? Hindi GP series. What is the GP series? I'm not really sure what you're saying, sir. Look, if people speak Hindi, it doesn't. First of all, look, if people speak Hindi, it doesn't mean they're uneducated. There can be people who are highly literate who don't speak English. Okay, so English is not some high language that makes you superior and makes you more educated. And I'm not sure what you're saying, GP series. Are you saying I should do some Hindi Q&As? I've done that in the past. I'm not that good. I mean, I speak Hindi very well, but my Hindi isn't the best, even though I can speak it fluently. And I prefer not to use the foreign loan words, especially on a public platform. That's why I stay away from Hindi mostly. Anyway, thank you very much, sir, for your recommendation. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of. Okay, Ankur Saraf is saying Hindi geopolitics series. Oh, that's what you're asking. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Right now, I have no plans for that. All right. Okay. Live chat for 300 podcast. We'll look into that. Okay. So thank you so much for all the questions. I'm going to end this here. We've crossed 2.5 hours. It was supposed to be 2 hours, but I always enjoy taking the questions from you all. And let's end this here. I look forward to seeing you in the live streams next week. We shall continue doing this. Please keep learning. Please keep asking questions, the right questions to the right people. Keep raising your standards. Doesn't matter if the government is not raising the standards and keeping India mediocre or whatever, whichever government, state, center, whatever you would like to talk about. But you can raise your own individual standards. All right? Please do that. Take care. Thank you. See you next week. Bye-bye.